4 days before my son's wedding, I stood in the middle of Starlight Hall holding a roll of double-sided tape and learned I had been removed from the processional. The wedding coordinator was arranging us with the exhausted patience of an air traffic controller. "Mother of the groom?" she called. I raised the tape. "That's me. Where do you want me?" Tessa was crouched beside a box of battery candles. She didn't even stand up. "You'll already be seated," she said. "I'll be what? Seated, before the processional starts." I looked at Eric. He became intensely interested in a heating vent. I thought Eric and I were walking in together. Tessa rose then, smoothing her palms down the front of her jeans. "We had to adjust that. He'll walk in with my mother." There was nothing vague about her tone. No question, no apology. Just a corrected fact I had apparently failed to receive. The coordinator looked from Tessa to me, then slowly lowered her clipboard. I asked Eric, "When did this change?" He finally looked at me, and the answer was already in his face. Not that morning, not that week, long enough ago for my son to have practiced keeping it from me. 3 months earlier, Tessa had sat at my kitchen table eating cold lasagna directly from the baking dish and telling me I was the only sane person involved in her wedding. This was before I understood that sanity, in wedding language, often meant a woman who would absorb inconvenience without requiring anyone to feel guilty about it. My kitchen looked like a stationery store had lost a custody battle. Envelopes covered the table. Cream-colored cards were stacked beside my sugar bowl. There were 3 pens near Tessa's elbow, all of them mine, all missing their caps. Eric stood at the counter attempting to open a bottle of wine with a vegetable peeler. "There's a corkscrew in the second drawer," I told him. I checked. "You checked the first drawer. I checked a drawer. That isn't the same thing." Tessa laughed with her mouth full. Eric gave her a wounded look, then found the corkscrew exactly where I had said it was. They had been engaged for 5 weeks. The official plan was a modest wedding with 80 guests and no unnecessary stress. At that point, the guest list had reached 112. The florist had been changed twice, and Tessa's mother had stopped speaking to the caterer over the emotional significance of green beans. "They were too glossy," Tessa explained. "The green beans?" I asked. "The photographs. Mom said they looked wet. They are vegetables, honey. Their options are limited." That made her laugh hard enough to put down her fork. That was one of the things I liked about Tessa. She could be particular to the point of madness, but she could also hear herself being ridiculous. She had a quick, startled laugh, as if humor had caught her trespassing. She hugged with both arms. She remembered the names of people Eric had introduced once and forgotten immediately. When Eric first brought her to dinner, she arrived with grocery store daisies and asked if she could help me clean up. He had dated women who treated my house like a furnished waiting room, so I probably gave her extra credit for knowing plates did not walk themselves to the sink. Now she pulled a legal pad toward her. "Okay, addresses." "We're missing Uncle Warren." "Your uncle or mine?" I asked. Eric poured wine into 3 water glasses. "Do we have an Uncle Warren?" "You do," I said. "He sent you $50 every birthday until you were 21. He frowned. "Is he the one with the boat?" "He gets seasick in the bathtub." Tessa pointed her pen at Eric. "This is why I need your mother." Eric raised his glass to me. "Human external hard drive." I smiled because that was how we talked. He teased. I supplied what he had forgotten. It had been our rhythm so long that neither of us considered who kept the rhythm going. I found Uncle Warren's address in the little book beside my phone. Tessa copied it carefully, adding a small check mark. "Your handwriting is beautiful," she told me. "It's readable. That used to be a lower expectation?" "No, really. Would you address these?" Eric winced for me. "That's a lot of envelopes." "It's fine," I said. Tessa reached across the table and squeezed my wrist. "Only if you want to." That question mattered to me then. Only if you want to. It made the work feel chosen. I'd be happy to. "See?" Eric said. "Sane person." I pointed at him. "Keep talking and your invitation will say Erica." He leaned down and kissed the top of my head. It was casual, automatic, the sort of affection you never imagine you might someday measure. The front door opened without a knock. "Please tell me nobody has sent anything yet," a woman called. Diane appeared in my kitchen wearing a white linen blouse, sunglasses pushed into her blonde hair, and the expression of someone arriving to identify a body. Tessa sat straighter. "Hi, Mom. Have the invitations gone out? We're addressing them. Thank God." Diane pressed one hand to her chest. In the other, she carried a paper shopping bag from an expensive bakery. She set it on my counter and kissed my cheek, leaving behind a trace of rose-colored lipstick. "Marlene, you look wonderful." I was wearing an old sweatshirt with a bleach mark shaped like Florida, but I thanked her. Diane took a pastry box from the bag. I brought almond croissants. "I didn't know we were doing dinner." "We weren't," Eric said. "Then I found lasagna." "You found it in my refrigerator," I said. "That's where I conduct most of my research." Diane smiled at him, but only briefly. "Tessa, we need to discuss your father's cousins." The room changed in the small way rooms did around Diane's divorce. Nobody announced it. We just began moving more carefully. Diane and her former husband had separated the previous fall after 36 years. I knew very few details, although Diane spoke as if everyone knew all of them, and decent people had simply agreed not to say them aloud. Tessa's father was not attending the wedding. Several members of his family were. "They've already been invited," Tessa said. "They shouldn't be seated near me. We don't have a seating chart yet." "Good. Then we can prevent a problem." Tessa set down her pen. "Mom, Aunt Louise is 72. She isn't going to attack you with a dinner roll." Diane removed her sunglasses from her hair and folded them with great care. "I'm not afraid of being attacked." Nobody said anything. She looked at the invitation spread across my table. "I'm asking not to be displayed in front of people who watch my marriage collapse and then send him Christmas cards." Eric opened the pastry box. The waxed paper crackled much louder than waxed paper had any right to. Tessa's face softened. "Mom, I know it's your day." Diane gave a little laugh that did not seem attached to anything funny. "Everyone keeps reminding me." I recognized that laugh. I had used it during the first year after my husband died, when people invited me to dinners built around pairs and then acted surprised that I had arrived alone. I pulled out the chair beside me. "Sit down, Diane." She did, although she looked annoyed at herself for needing to. I poured her wine into my glass and got another from the cabinet. While Tessa explained the proposed layout, Diane tore one almond croissant into smaller and smaller pieces without eating any of it. The venue had a long central aisle. Dinner would be held in the adjoining ballroom at round tables. Tessa wanted no bride's side or groom's side because she disliked competitive seating. Diane wanted her former in-laws placed far enough away that she would not have to feel them noticing she had no husband beside her. "That's easy," I said. "Put them with Warren." "Boat Warren?" Eric asked. "There is no boat, Eric." Diane looked at me, and for the first time that evening her smile reached her eyes. "You make everything sound manageable. Most things are manageable in pieces." That became another sentence people remembered selectively. By 10, the invitations were stacked. Diane had gone home with 6 almond croissants she had brought herself, and Eric was asleep on my couch with one shoe off. Tessa stayed at the table, checking names. "You don't have to finish tonight," I told her. "If I go home, I'll think about everything that isn't done. If you stay here, you'll invent new things that aren't done." She rubbed both hands over her face. Without makeup, she looked younger but more tired. "I'm sorry about my mom. You don't have to apologize for her." "Yes, I do. Constantly. It's practically cardio." I laughed, but Tessa didn't. "She wasn't always like this," she said. "She used to be the person who could walk into any room. Dad would disappear into a conversation, and she'd just make her own fun. Now she thinks everybody is looking at her. Sometimes after a marriage ends, you don't know which parts of you belong to the marriage." Tessa studied me. "Was it like that when Frank died?" "Some of it." Frank's death had been abrupt and ordinary, which was the cruelest combination. He went to work on a Tuesday and never came home. For months afterward, I kept buying the yogurt only he ate. Tessa touched my hand. I'm so glad Eric has you. It was such a sweet sentence that I did not examine it for weight. From the couch, Eric snored once, loudly, then went quiet. Tessa glanced at him and smiled. He acts like nothing gets to him. He gets that from his father. I thought Frank worried about everything. He did. He just preferred everyone else to guess what. She nodded as if I had given her useful instructions. I don't want Eric guessing with me, she said. I want us to choose each other, even when it's uncomfortable. That sounds reasonable. I mean, really choose. Not just when it's easy. She began aligning the envelopes, tapping their edges against the table. My mom gave up a lot in her marriage, more than I knew. Then when it ended, everybody expected her to behave beautifully so they wouldn't feel awkward. There was an accusation in her voice, but not against me. She shouldn't have to make herself small, Tessa said. No, she deserves to feel like somebody is on her side. Of course she does. Tessa looked toward Eric again. He was still sleeping, one arm hanging off the couch, his sock twisted halfway around his foot. I just want her to feel like she isn't walking into that room alone, she said. I thought she meant the reception, the relatives, the life waiting after divorce. I squeezed her hand and told her we would make sure she didn't. At the time, it never occurred to me to ask who Tessa intended to leave sitting down. The invitations occupied my dining room for the next 6 nights. Tessa had chosen envelopes with a glue strip that required a light dampening, according to the manufacturer, and an act of Congress, according to me. Too much water wrinkled the paper. Too little left the flap floating open like it had changed its mind. Eric contributed by sealing 11 backward. How? Tessa asked, holding one up. He inspected it. That might be the left-handed version. You're not left-handed. Which explains why I struggled. She looked at me. Was he dropped? Not often enough to explain this. Most evenings were like that. Eric brought takeout. Tessa brought lists. I supplied tape, stamps, names, phone numbers, and the knowledge that his cousin Joel's wife went by Beth, even though every official card addressed her as Elizabeth. Tessa usually thanked me. Eric usually kissed my cheek and said, "What would we do without you?" The honest answer was apparently misspell Beth. On Friday morning, Paula called while I was scraping dried envelope glue from the table. "Tell me you haven't forgotten tomorrow." I wedged the phone between my shoulder and ear. I have not forgotten tomorrow. That answer lacks reassuring detail. We are going to the art fair. You're driving because you criticize my parking. I criticize your belief that painted lines are suggestions. My younger sister had been trying for 3 years to get me to attend that particular fair with her. Something always happened. The first year, Eric moved apartments. The second, his washing machine flooded. The previous spring, Frank's brother came through town for one afternoon and expected lunch. This time, Paula had emailed me a map, restaurant options, and a photograph of a ceramic bird she said looked like me. It had a large chest and an angry eyebrow. "I'll be ready at 9, I promised. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Eric on my porch, holding a cardboard tray of coffee and wearing the polite smile he used before asking for something. Paula heard me sigh. What does he need? He hasn't said hello yet. He's holding bribery coffee. Call me when you've canceled. I'm not canceling. You said that with the confidence of a woman who has already put on her coat. Eric waved through the storm door. I'll call you later, I told Paula. Tell my nephew I hope his coffee is cold. It wasn't. Mine had cinnamon sprinkled over the foam, which meant he had remembered my order or read the label before handing it to me. Morning, Mom. Your aunt says she hopes that's cold. He stepped inside. Which aunt? You have one. Then I knew exactly who you meant. He followed me to the kitchen where he noticed the invitation debris. You're still working on these? I'm cleaning up after these. Right. Finished. That's great. He drank his coffee and looked out the window. I waited. He lasted 9 seconds. So there's this tasting tomorrow. No, I haven't asked yet. I have plans with Paula, that's fine. Absolutely. I just thought you'd want to know they changed the date. You're very comfortable with the word changed. The caterer had a cancellation. It's the only Saturday Diane can do before the wedding. Then you, Tessa, and Diane should go. He scratched the back of his neck. Tessa wants you there. Why? You're good with food. Everyone who eats is good with food. She trusts your opinion. What time? His relief appeared so quickly it irritated me. 11. I looked at the ceramic bird photograph still hanging on my refrigerator under a magnet. Paula had added a speech bubble that said, "I've heard your excuses. I'm not canceling on Paula again." Of course not, I mean it. Bring her. There'll be cake. Paula doesn't like wedding cake. Who doesn't like cake? Your aunt. The woman you've met for 34 years. His phone buzzed. He glanced down and typed with both thumbs. That's Tessa. She says, please. You told her I was here before you came? I told her I was trying. I set my coffee down. Something in my face made him put away the phone. We really do want you there, Mom. Want was a useful word. It dressed obligation in nicer clothes. I called Paula anyway. She was silent long enough for me to hear the television in her apartment. I can meet you after, I said. We could still have dinner. We had a day planned. I know. No, Marlene, you had a day planned until Eric found a thing he didn't want to do without you. That isn't fair. I'm not sure fairness is the issue. It's one wedding. It's always one something. I lowered my voice, although Eric was standing 6 feet away and could hear every word. I'm his mother. I'm aware. I was at the hospital, remember? Paula, go taste chicken. I'll find somebody who can tolerate art and arrive when she says she will. She hung up before I could answer. Eric stared at the countertop. Did she call me selfish? No. That feels worse. It should. The tasting took 3 hours. Diane rejected the first salad because the dried cranberries reminded her of potpourri. Tessa became convinced the mashed potatoes were beige in a depressing way. Eric ate every sample placed in front of him and called this remaining neutral. I liked the caterer, a broad-shouldered woman named Noreen who responded to criticism by blinking slowly. They're mashed potatoes, Noreen said. Their range is beige to slightly more beige. I nearly laughed wine through my nose. Tessa chose roasted potatoes instead. Afterward, in the parking lot, she hugged me. Thank you for coming. I know this is a lot. You're welcome. I just feel calmer when you're there. That was another compliment I accepted without checking its price. Paula sent me a picture that evening. She stood beside the ceramic bird with one arm around a silver-haired woman I did not recognize. The caption read, "Janet bought your ticket and has strong feelings about glassblowing." I typed 3 different replies and deleted all of them. At the dress fitting 2 weeks later, Diane cried before Tessa had fully emerged from behind the curtain. You can't even see her yet, I whispered. I can see the hem. The hem apparently contained 40 years of maternal devotion. Tessa came out wearing a simple ivory gown with narrow straps and a skirt that moved softly around her ankles. She had rejected anything with beading, lace, or what she called decorative optimism. The dress made her look like herself, only sharpened. Well? She asked. Diane covered her mouth. I smiled. Turn around. Tessa turned. The seamstress pinned a fold near her waist. Diane cried harder. Is that good crying? Tessa asked. There is no good crying in public lighting. Tessa laughed, but her eyes filled too. I stood to straighten the back where the fabric had caught. My fingers remembered dressing Eric for church when he was small, though I did not say that. There were certain memories that sounded sentimental once they left your mouth. You look beautiful, I told her. She met my eyes in the mirror. You mean it? I wouldn't let you walk into your wedding looking foolish. Diane lowered her hands. Neither would I. The seamstress stepped away so we could see the finished line. Tessa looked at the 3 of us in the mirror and reached for both our hands. I'm lucky, she said. For a moment, I believed all 3 of us understood the same thing. Then Diane noticed her reflection. I can't wear the navy dress. Tessa's shoulders dropped. Mom, it makes me look tired. You are tired, thank you. That wasn't an insult. It had excellent camouflage. The seamstress quietly left us alone. Diane sat and began swiping through photographs on her phone. One dress was too severe. Another showed too much shoulder. A third had been approved until Diane learned Eric's aunt had chosen a similar color. Marlene could help, Tessa said. That was how I ended up spending a Tuesday afternoon in a department store dressing room while Diane tried on 17 dresses. She disliked her arms, her knees, her neck, and one zipper personally. The saleswoman disappeared after dress 9 and never returned. At dress 14, Diane looked at herself under the fluorescent lights and said, "He always told me green made me look expensive." I was sitting on a small upholstered cube outside the fitting room. Your former husband? Who else would be foolish enough to say that? She looked good in the green dress. It made her eyes brighter. It also made her look exactly like a woman attending a wedding without the man who had spent decades telling her what suited her. You don't have to buy something he would recognize, I said. She studied her reflection. I don't know what I recognize. There she was, not Tessa's demanding mother, not the woman terrorizing mashed potatoes. Just Diane, 59 years old, holding a price tag and trying to determine whether she still had taste of her own. I stood beside her. The blue one, I said. The plain blue? It wasn't plain on you. It showed my shoulders. You have shoulders. People will recover. She smiled reluctantly. Tessa says you're funny. Tessa says many things when she wants my help. The smile disappeared so fast I wondered if I had embarrassed her. Then she said, "She leans on you. They both do, Eric especially." It sounded less like praise than observation. Before I could ask what she meant, Diane returned to the fitting room and bought the blue dress. The next Sunday, Eric and Tessa came for dinner, carrying a binder thick enough to require its own chair. Tessa set it beside her plate while I served pot roast. "No wedding talk until dessert," Eric announced. "That was your rule," Tessa said. "It's a good rule. You texted me about parking during Grace last week. I was inspired. We made it through 12 minutes before Tessa opened the binder. I just need to settle the ceremony order." Eric groaned. "This is why married people stop having fun," I said. "We're not married yet," he said. "Then there's still time." Tessa slid a page toward him. I could see names arranged in a column, but it was upside down from where I sat. "Diane gets seated first," Eric said. "Not first. Grandparents are first. We don't have grandparents. We have honorary grandparents." He looked at me. "Are those just older people we like? Be careful how you say that." He grinned and reached for another potato. Tessa tapped the page. "Then your aunt, then my aunt, then the wedding party. And Mom and I," Eric said, "will go right before you come in." He said it easily. Of course, Mom and I. The same way he had said it when he first described the ceremony, and the same way I had pictured it ever since. I looked at Tessa. Her finger stopped on the page. Only for a second. Then she closed the binder. "Dessert," she said brightly. "Your rule." Eric glanced at her, but she was already standing to help me clear the plates. In the kitchen, she carried 2 dishes to the sink and turned on the water. "You don't have to wash those," I said. "I know." She scrubbed a plate that had barely been used. Behind us, Eric was telling Diane on speakerphone that the blue dress sounded perfect. Tessa scrubbed harder when her mother asked whether he really thought so or was just being kind. I reached around her and shut off the water. "That plate didn't do anything to you." She gave a breathless little laugh. "I'm tired. You're allowed. I need this wedding to be good. It will be. You can't promise that." "No. But I can promise it doesn't have to solve everything." Her face tightened. "I know that." From the dining room, Eric said, "Mom, Diane wants to know what color your dress is." "Plum." He relayed it. There was a pause on the phone, then Diane said something I couldn't hear. Tessa looked toward the doorway. "She just doesn't want to feel alone," she said. "I know." Eric laughed at something Diane said. His voice had that gentle patience he used with people who were fragile and that he rarely needed with me. Tessa dried her hands. "Sometimes," she said, "the person who needs something more should get it." I thought she was still talking about dresses, tables, or the 1,000 little choices we had all agreed were not worth fighting over. "Sometimes," I said. She smiled and kissed my cheek before carrying the clean plate back to the table. The binder stayed closed for the rest of the night. When they left, Eric hugged me on the porch and said he'd call tomorrow. I watched him open the car door for Tessa, then jog around to the driver's side through a light rain. The binder sat on the back seat between 2 boxes of candles. He had told me where I would walk. Tessa had heard him. Neither of us knew she had already begun deciding that his promise was hers to give away. The rain followed them home and turned into 3 days of damp weather that made every cardboard box in my house feel soft around the edges. By then, wedding supplies had migrated beyond the dining room. A box of ivory candles sat beneath my piano. 6 bottles of sparkling cider occupied the bottom shelf of my refrigerator because Tessa's apartment fridge was emotionally full. The emergency bag she had asked me to assemble rested beside my front door, packed with safety pins, pain reliever, tissues, stain remover, breath mints, bandages, a sewing kit, and 2 granola bars Eric would almost certainly eat before anyone had an emergency. I also had the printed list for the wedding morning breakfast taped to my cabinet. Coffee by 8, fruit at 8:15, pastries warmed but not hot. No bananas because their smell lingered. Diane preferred honey and tea. Tessa wanted scrambled eggs but doubted she would eat them. 9 adults were expected, although the number kept changing. I read that list several times without wondering why the groom's mother was feeding everyone before being escorted into the ceremony by her son. Trust does not make you stupid. It just tells you which questions you should not need to ask. Eric came by the Monday before the wedding to pick up the candles. He was wearing his work clothes and looked tired enough that I made him sit down while I fixed him a sandwich. "You're doing the thing," he said. "What thing?" "The mother thing, where you feed me instead of asking why I look terrible." "I can do both. Turkey or ham?" "Turkey. Why do you look terrible?" He loosened his tie. Tessa and I had a fight. About? The wedding. That narrows it to everything. He smiled, but it lasted only a second. "She thinks I'm not taking enough initiative." "Are you?" "I have initiated several things. Name one." He stared at me. I put mustard on his sandwich. I ordered the rental car. "For the honeymoon?" "For the airport." "You live 20 minutes from the airport." "See? Initiative." I handed him the plate. He took a bite, then spoke around it. "She just wants to know I'm on her side. That sounds familiar." "Mom." "What?" "I'm agreeing with you. You're agreeing in that voice. I only have one voice. You have 17. That was number 6. Concerned, but pretending not to be. He was not wrong. I sat across from him. "Marriage is not a series of loyalty tests, Eric." "I know that." "Does she?" His jaw moved as he chewed. "Tessa has been under a lot of pressure. So have you." "Yeah, but I can handle it." It was almost the same logic Tessa used about me. The sturdy person could carry more because the load did not show. I reached across the table and straightened his tie without thinking. Handling something doesn't mean never speaking. He looked down at my hand. "Do you remember when I used to grab your arm in parking lots?" he asked. "You mean when you were convinced every sedan was hunting you? You'd say, 'Stay close,' and you'd say, 'I am close.' Usually while walking away from me." He smiled properly this time. "At least the ceremony will be easy," he said. "You and me walk in, I stand up front, and I try not to lock my knees." The words landed strangely after Tessa's pause over the binder, but he said them with complete confidence. I waited for him to mention a change. He took another bite. "Then you're walking with me?" I asked. His eyes flicked up. It was brief. So brief I might have missed it if I'd been reaching for my coffee. "Yeah," he said. "That's the plan." He looked back at his sandwich. I wish I could say I knew then. Some wiser version of me would have pressed him, made him hold eye contact, asked why an ordinary question had suddenly required a lie. Instead, I heard the answer I wanted and let him finish eating. On Tuesday, Tessa called because the venue had changed the rules about open flames. They knew we had candles, she said. We have discussed candles with them since February. The candles are battery-operated. They want proof. Proof they take batteries? A photo of the labels. I was standing in the grocery store holding a cantaloupe. The candles are at my house. I know, I'm sorry. Eric picked them up yesterday. There was silence. He did? He put them in his trunk. Another silence, longer this time. I asked him to take them to the venue. He may have. He has not. Tessa, breathe. I am breathing. You're talking like you're being pursued. I have 1 week to get married, Marlene. I am being pursued. I set down the cantaloupe and called Eric. The candles were still in his trunk, along with 2 empty coffee cups, a winter coat, and an object he described as possibly a shoe. I met him in his office parking lot, photographed the labels, sent them to Tessa, and drove the boxes to Starlight Hall myself. Nobody demanded proof. The receptionist glanced at the labels and said, "Those are fine." I stood there holding 20 pounds of plastic candlelight and had the unmistakable feeling that I was the only person in the wedding who had been required to demonstrate anything. Wednesday's final walkthrough began at 4. I arrived at 3:30 because Tessa had asked me to bring the candles, the emergency bag, the breakfast serving trays, and the roll of double-sided tape she swore would be needed for the aisle runner. The hall was a renovated brick building with tall windows and dark wooden beams. The ceremony room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. Rows of chairs faced an arch that had not yet been decorated. The aisle between them seemed narrower than it had during the first tour. Tessa was already there in jeans and a white t-shirt, directing Eric toward the ballroom with a box of place cards. "Those are alphabetical," she called after him. "I'm not shaking them. Don't tilt the box." He tilted it while turning around to give her a look. Diane stood near the arch holding fabric samples against the brick. Her blue dress hung in a garment bag over one arm, even though the wedding was 4 days away. "I don't trust my apartment pipes," she explained. "With the dress, a leak could happen. Here? Not here." I decided not to pursue it. The coordinator, Kelsey, arrived carrying her clipboard and a cup of iced coffee the size of a flower vase. She gathered us near the back of the room and began assigning positions. That was how I ended up in the aisle with the tape in my hand, watching Eric study a heating vent while Tessa informed me he would enter with Diane. After I asked when the plan had changed, nobody answered. Kelsey lowered her clipboard. "I can give you a minute," she said. "You don't need to leave," Tessa replied. "Yes," I said, "she does." Kelsey left so quickly her straw rattled. Diane looked at Tessa. "You didn't tell her? I thought Eric did?" All 3 of us turned toward him. Eric pushed his hands into his pockets. "I was going to." "When?" I asked. "Mom, don't do this here. Where would you prefer I find out? It's not a big deal." Tessa closed her eyes. "Please don't say that." He pulled one hand from his pocket and gestured toward the aisle. "It's 1 minute. Less than 1 minute." Then why did Diane need it? Diane's mouth tightened. "I didn't ask him," she said. Tessa turned. "You said you couldn't walk in alone. I said I was worried about it. You cried. That was not a request. You wanted someone with you. I assumed an usher." Tessa's face changed. Not much, but enough to show me this had not gone according to the version she had rehearsed. She looked at me. "My mother has been through a horrible year. I thought Eric escorting her would show that she's part of our family now. And what does seating me before the processional show? This isn't about pushing you out. It requires pushing me out. No, it requires you to understand that she needs the moment more." Eric stepped between us, not quite facing either one of us. "You had me my whole life, Mom." The room became so still I could hear someone rolling a cart in the ballroom. I looked at him. "What does that mean?" "It means you know where you stand with me. I believed I did. Come on, you're not losing anything." There it was, the math of being loved by Eric. What he took from me did not count as a loss because he assumed I would remain available afterward. I looked at Tessa. "When did you decide this?" "Last Sunday. The dinner, the binder." Her finger stopping on the page. "Eric had come for a sandwich the next day and told me nothing had changed." "And when did Eric agree?" Tessa glanced at him. "Sunday night. He had known before the tasting, before the candles, before he sat at my table and promised me the ceremony would be easy." I set the tape on the nearest chair. Eric rubbed both hands over his face. "I knew you'd be hurt. So you waited until I couldn't object without disrupting the wedding. That's not why?" "Then why?" He had no answer. That did not sound like the answer. Diane draped her garment bag over a chair. "I can walk with an usher." "No," Tessa said sharply. "We made a decision." "You made a decision," Diane replied. "Apparently several." Tessa stared at her mother as if betrayal had arrived from the wrong direction. Eric turned back to me. "Mom, please. Diane needs support. You're stronger than she is right now. I almost admired the neatness of it. My strength had become evidence that I deserved less care." He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "You're my mom. I knew you'd understand." I picked up the emergency bag from beside my feet and held it out to Tessa. She looked at it but did not take it. "What are you doing?" "I'm understanding." "Marlene, if I'm being seated before the wedding begins, I'll attend as a guest." Eric frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I won't be hosting breakfast. I won't be managing deliveries. I won't be carrying this bag, gathering decorations, or staying afterward to clean up." Tessa finally took the handles. The weight pulled her arm down. "You already agreed to those things. I agreed as the groom's mother. You are the groom's mother. Then you should have remembered that before you removed me." Eric's face hardened. "So this is punishment?" "No. This is me believing the role you gave me." I walked out before either of them could decide which part of me they still needed. The emergency bag had left a red groove across Tessa's palm when she took it from me. That was the image that stayed with me as I drove home. Not Eric's face. Not the narrow aisle. Tessa holding the weight of all those things I had packed because I loved her, looking shocked that love could have handles and be transferred. My phone began ringing before I reached the first stoplight. Eric. I let it ring. He called again as I turned onto my street. Then Tessa called. Then Eric again. By the time I pulled into my driveway, there were 4 missed calls and a text. "Please don't leave like this." I sat in the car with the engine off. The breakfast trays were still in my trunk. On the passenger seat was the cardigan I had planned to wear while everyone crowded around my kitchen Sunday morning, drinking coffee and pretending not to be nervous. I called him. "What happened?" he said immediately. "You were there? I mean, what happened to having a conversation?" "We had one. You walked out." After I finished my sentence. "Mom, everyone's upset. Everyone was 3 people and one of them was me. I'm sorry to hear that. Could you not talk like I'm calling customer service? Could you not talk like I misplaced your order?" He exhaled hard. Behind him, I heard a door close and Tessa say something I couldn't make out. "Look," he said, lowering his voice, "this has gotten out of proportion." "How would you know the right proportion? You decided it wasn't a big deal before telling me." "I didn't decide that. You just said it at the venue. I said the walking part isn't a big deal. To you, it's a symbolic thing." "Yes, Eric. That is why it matters." Silence. I had spent years translating his silences. Irritated silence. Tired silence. "I'm sorry, but don't want to say it silence." This one meant he was waiting for my tone to soften so he could step over the substance of what I had said. I didn't help him. Finally, he asked, "Are you really canceling breakfast?" "Yes, 4 days before the wedding." "You changed my part in the wedding 4 days before the wedding. Apparently you think eggs and walking down an aisle are the same." "No, I think both were planned without asking whether I mattered. They'll have to move everything to the hotel. Then move it. Tessa's suite isn't big enough. I'm sure you'll manage. He gave a short, humorless laugh. That's what you always say. I almost told him that was what he always expected. Instead, I said, I'll see you at the rehearsal. He went quiet again. You're coming? I said I would. Okay, good. Relief entered his voice. We can sort this out there. No, I'm coming because I made a commitment to attend. That doesn't mean I'll change my answer. You've made your point. I wasn't making a point. What do you call all this? A consequence. He hung up first. Inside, the printed breakfast list waited on my kitchen cabinet. Coffee by 8, pastries warmed but not hot, no bananas. I peeled it down. A strip of clear tape stayed stuck to the wood, and I picked at the edge until my thumbnail hurt. The doorbell rang 20 minutes later. I expected Eric. It was Paula, holding 2 white takeout bags and the ceramic bird with the angry eyebrow. You bought it, I said. Janet bought it. I stole it from Janet. You stole a ceramic bird? She said you needed it more. I don't know Janet. She has instincts. Paula walked in without waiting for an invitation and set the bird in the middle of my kitchen table. It looked furious to be there. What did Eric tell you? I asked. That you had a meltdown at the wedding venue. I did not have a meltdown. I assumed. Your meltdowns involve wiping counters harder than necessary. I did leave. Good for you. Don't say it like that. Like what? Like you won something. Paula's expression changed. She unpacked cartons of noodles and chicken, placing them between stacks of unused napkins. I don't enjoy being right when being right hurts you. You enjoy it a little. I'm your sister. Of course, I enjoy it a little. Despite myself, I laughed. She handed me a fork. Tell me exactly what happened. I did. Paula listened without interrupting until I repeated Eric's line about having me his whole life. What does he think happens after the wedding? She asked. The mother lease expires? Don't. What? Make him crueler than he is? I'm not making him anything. He didn't do it to hurt me. That doesn't make it painless. I pushed noodles around the carton. Paula ate a piece of broccoli and looked at me across the table. You want me to tell you he loves you. I know he loves me. Then what do you want? I want those 2 facts not to be able to live together. She didn't tell me they couldn't. That was why, underneath all her sharp edges, Paula was the person I had needed. She did not rush to make pain behave. My phone rang again. This time it was Diane. Paula raised both eyebrows. I answered. Marlene. Diane sounded like she had been crying or yelling, which produced a similar roughness in her voice. I want you to know I had no idea they hadn't told you. I believe you. I thought you agreed. I did not. I would never have accepted if I knew. I looked at the ceramic bird. Wouldn't you? Paula stopped eating. Diane took a breath. What is that supposed to mean? It means you were willing to let Eric escort you even though that traditionally left me with somebody else. You just thought I had agreed to it. That is very different. It is. I wasn't trying to take your place. I know. I'm going to tell them I'll walk with an usher. No. No? This is between Eric and me. If you give it up now, Tessa will think I forced you. Tessa already thinks you're punishing her. I'm sure she does. I don't want this. I heard something in her voice I had not expected. Shame, perhaps, or disappointment that the gesture she had enjoyed no longer felt clean. You wanted support, I said. Yes, you should have it. I'm not angry that someone is walking beside you. Then what are you angry about? That my son decided there wasn't room beside him for both of us, and he knew which one of us would forgive him. Diane went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Tessa was upset after dinner Sunday. She said he always checked with you before making decisions. He doesn't. I know that now, but that's what she believes. Did you ask him to prove otherwise? No. It came too fast. Then she added, I didn't stop her. That was closer to the truth. After we hung up, Paula watched me. Well, she wants to give up the walk. And I told her not to. Paula dropped her fork into the carton. You're unbelievable. It isn't hers to fix. That doesn't mean she has to keep it. If she backs out, They'll put me in her place and call it compromise. So I don't want a place they only value after I refuse to work for it." Paula leaned back. The ceramic bird glared between us. Finally, she said, "I'm taking Sunday morning off." "For what? To sit with you? I don't need a guard." "Fine. I'm taking it off to prevent that bird from being left unsupervised." The hotel breakfast created its own crisis by Thursday morning. Tessa sent a group message asking where the serving trays, coffee urn, extra plates, tablecloths, fruit knives, and folding chairs were. Most of those things were mine. The coffee urn belonged to my church and had never been promised. I replied that the breakfast supplies I had agreed to provide would no longer be needed because I was no longer hosting. Her response came seconds later. "I cannot believe you are doing this now." I typed, "I cannot believe you did it earlier," then deleted it. Before I could write anything else, a second message appeared. "Please bring the trays to rehearsal." I said I would. Eric arrived at noon to collect them. He used his key. I heard the lock turn while I was wrapping the trays in clean dish towels. He entered, shut the door, and called, "Mom, in here." He stopped at the kitchen doorway. "You should knock." He held up the key. "I have a key." "That isn't what keys are for. What are they for?" "Emergencies?" "This wedding seems to qualify." He tried to smile. I didn't. He looked older than he had on Monday. There was stubble along his jaw, and his shirt had been buttoned wrong, leaving one side lower than the other. I wanted to fix it. I kept folding the towel. "The hotel found a conference room," he said, "so breakfast is handled." "Good." Diane ordered food. "Good." Tessa cried all night. I set the tray down. "I'm sorry she's hurting. She thinks you hate her." "I don't. Could you tell her that?" "I can tell her at the rehearsal. You could call now. She could have called me. She doesn't know what to say. She knew what to say at the venue." His face tightened. "Can you stop acting like she did this alone?" I looked at him. He looked away first. "That isn't what I meant," he said. "It's the first accurate thing you've said. I know I should have told you. You should not have agreed. So I was supposed to tell my fiancé no because my mother might be upset? You were supposed to tell your fiancé no because you had already made a promise." He rubbed his forehead. "I didn't think it was a promise. You let me think it was. I thought you'd understand why Diane needed it. You keep using that word as if understanding erases injury." He picked up the wrapped trays. "I wish you could hear how you sound. I wish you had heard how quiet I was when you lied to me over a turkey sandwich." He flinched. For one second, I thought he might apologize. Then he said, "The rehearsal starts at 5. At Starlight Hall, Kelsey had arranged small name cards on the front row seats. Mine was on the aisle. Diane's was gone because she would be standing at the back with Eric. Tessa wore a white jumpsuit and a smile so controlled it looked painful. She thanked everyone for coming, hugged Paula, and greeted me with a stiff, "Hi, Marlene. Hi, Tessa." I handed the trays to one of her friends, a woman named Raina, who whispered, "I'm staying out of it," before I had said anything. Kelsey gathered everyone near the aisle. "Before we start," Eric said, "we've made an adjustment." Tessa stared ahead. He looked at me. "I'll escort both mothers." People became very interested in their shoes. I said no. His face reddened. "Mom, you made your choice. I'm trying to fix it. You're trying to fix how it looks. Does the difference matter right now? It matters to me." Tessa folded her arms. "What exactly would be enough?" I looked at her. "Going back to Sunday and telling me the truth." "We can't do that." "I know. That's convenient," she said. "You're asking for the one thing nobody can give you." "No. I'm explaining why walking between you now would not repair what happened." Kelsey pretended to study her clipboard. Eric's voice dropped. "Please don't make me do this without you." The sentence reached for the part of me that had always stepped forward when he sounded lost. I held still. "You already decided you could," I said. Then I took my seat so they could practice leaving me there. Kelsey waited until the silence became unbearable, then clapped her hands once. "All right, let's take it from the top." Nobody moved. She checked her clipboard. Grandparents. We don't have grandparents, Eric said. Honorary grandparents, Tessa corrected. An older couple from her mother's church stepped into the aisle. The man winked at me as if we were sharing a joke. I smiled because explaining would have required more energy than I had. The rehearsal continued in pieces. Kelsey placed people, moved them, then moved them back. Raina walked too fast. Eric's friend Marcus forgot which side he was supposed to stand on. Someone's phone played the first 3 notes of Sweet Caroline before being silenced. Then Kelsey called Diane and Eric. Diane remained near the back wall. Tessa touched her elbow. Mom. I know. She looked toward me. I kept my eyes on Kelsey. Eric offered Diane his arm. She took it and they began walking. He had walked beside me hundreds of times without ceremony. Grocery store aisles, hospital corridors, the parking lot after Frank's funeral, when Eric held my elbow so firmly, his fingers left pale marks in my skin. Those walks had meant something because neither of us had planned them. Now he moved carefully, counting his steps. Diane's blue rehearsal dress swayed at her knees. Her shoulders were rigid. Halfway down the aisle, she whispered something to him. He whispered back. They both glanced at me. Paula leaned closer. If they fall, I'm not helping. Behave. I am. That was the edited version. When Eric and Diane reached the front, Kelsey positioned him beneath the arch. And Diane, you'll take your seat. Diane sat across the aisle from me. For one brief moment, we were 2 women in the front row watching other people arrange what our relationships were supposed to mean. Tessa practiced her entrance alone. She had decided against anyone escorting her because, as she had explained months earlier, she wanted to enter her marriage as a whole person rather than be given away. I had admired that choice. Watching her now, I understood the imbalance she had created. She could walk alone and call it strength. Diane walking alone would be abandonment. I was expected to sit alone and call it love. Tessa reached Eric beneath the arch and took his hands. He smiled at her. Even angry, even hurt, I loved the way his face changed when he looked at the woman he was about to marry. That was the miserable thing. Love did not line up neatly behind the person who was right. At the rehearsal dinner, Paula sat beside me and intercepted every conversation that began with, "So," about the ceremony. The dinner was held in the back room of a restaurant with red walls and framed photographs of people eating pasta in the 1970s. Tessa's father's relatives occupied one table. Diane occupied the farthest possible table without technically being in the kitchen. Eric moved from group to group, shaking hands and accepting advice from men whose own marriages had lasted anywhere from 4 years to 45 unhappy ones. Tessa barely ate. At one point, she caught my eye across the room. Her expression softened, and for half a second, she looked like the woman who had sat at my kitchen table eating cold lasagna. Then Raina leaned over to say something, and Tessa turned away. After dessert, Eric tapped his fork against his glass. "I'll keep this short," he said. "First lie of the marriage," Marcus called. People laughed. Eric thanked the guests, the wedding party, Kelsey and Tessa's aunt for arranging the dinner. He thanked Diane for raising the woman who changed my life. Diane cried into her napkin. Then he looked at me, and my mom, who has helped with more things than I can name. He paused as if expecting that sentence to do work he had not done himself. People turned toward me. I smiled because refusing would have made them look longer. Paula reached under the table and squeezed my hand hard enough to hurt. Eric lifted his glass. To family. Everyone drank. "He can name them?" Paula murmured. "He just doesn't want to use up the evening." I kicked her ankle. Outside the restaurant, Eric caught up to me while Paula went to bring the car around. "Mom." I stopped. He had loosened his collar. In the yellow light above the entrance, he looked like Frank after a long day, tired, stubborn, and younger than the mistakes he was making. "Thanks for coming," he said. "I told you I would." "About tomorrow, you don't need to explain the schedule. That's not what I was going to say." I waited. He shoved his hands into his pockets. "I want you there. I will be there. I mean there with me. The door opened behind us, releasing a burst of laughter and garlic-scented air. You had a chance to want that, I said. I still do. Then why are you walking with Diane? His jaw tightened. Because changing it now would humiliate her. So you do understand why public gestures matter. That's not fair. No, it isn't. Paula pulled up to the curb. Eric looked at her car, then back at me. Can we please get through the wedding? The way he said we made it sound as if we were carrying the same burden. You'll get through it, I told him. He stepped back as I opened the passenger door. Marlene, Paula said after I got in, if you cry, I have napkins. They may smell like marinara. I'm not crying. Then I have mints. The days before the ceremony passed without another argument because Eric and Tessa stopped calling. I learned through Paula that breakfast had expanded to 14 people and been moved from the hotel conference room to Diane's apartment because the hotel charged extra for outside food. Then it moved back to the conference room because Diane's apartment pipes, apparently, remained a threat. Nobody asked me to solve it. Sunday morning, I woke at 6:30 out of habit. My kitchen was clean, no coffee urn, no trays, no nervous adults opening cabinets and asking where I kept the sugar while standing directly in front of it. The quiet felt peaceful for almost a minute. Then it felt like being forgotten. I made one piece of toast and left it on the plate after 2 bites. At 7:15, my phone lit up with photographs in the wedding group message. Pastry boxes, paper cups, Tessa in a white robe, smiling while Raina pinned up her hair. Diane holding a mug in both hands. Eric appeared in the corner of one picture, eating a granola bar from the emergency bag. I laughed once. Of course he had found them. Paula arrived at 8 carrying a paper sack. You already ate? She asked. I glanced at the toast. Clearly. She removed 2 breakfast sandwiches, hash browns, and a bottle of orange juice. I brought enough grease to support a small repair shop. You didn't have to come. I know. She said it without emphasis, which somehow made me hear all the times Tessa had said the same thing. We ate at my table beneath the ceramic bird's disapproval. Afterward, Paula followed me upstairs and sat on the edge of my bed while I dressed. The plum gown had long sleeves and a soft drape at the waist. I had chosen it because Eric once said the color made me look warm. Paula zipped me up. You look beautiful. Don't cry. I'm not crying. Your room is dusty. You bought me a bird made of dust. Janet bought it. At the venue, Marcus met me in the lobby. Kelsey said I'm seating you, he said. He was 35 and nervous enough to call me ma'am twice. You don't have to hold my arm, I told him. I was given very specific instructions. By whom? He looked toward the ceremony room. Several people. He offered his arm, I took it. Guests were still arriving, and the musicians had not begun the processional music. Conversations continued as Marcus led me down the aisle. A few people smiled. One of Frank's cousins gave me a puzzled look, then glanced behind me as if Eric might be coming. My name card had been removed from the seat. A small white rose now marked my place beside Paula. Marcus settled me, whispered, "You good?" and returned to the lobby. Paula touched my sleeve. "You're warm," she said. "What?" "The color. It makes you look warm." I faced forward. The music began. The honorary grandparents entered, then relatives, attendants, Raina, and Marcus. People turned in their seats, lifting phones despite being asked not to. Eric appeared at the back with Diane on his arm. He looked handsome in his dark suit. Frank's cufflinks shone at his wrists. I had given them to him the month he proposed. Diane wore the plain blue dress. Her shoulders looked lovely. As they started forward, she kept her eyes on the front. Eric did not. He looked directly at me. His steps faltered, only once. Diane tightened her hand around his arm, and he continued. I smiled at him. I hated myself a little for doing it, but I knew if I didn't, he would remember my face instead of his wedding. He escorted Diane to her seat, kissed her cheek, and took his place beneath the arch. Then Tessa entered alone. She was breathtaking. There was no other honest word for it. When she saw Eric, her careful expression broke open, and she smiled with such naked relief that my anger briefly loosened its grip. They married each other. Nothing dramatic happened. No one objected. No candles failed. Eric did not lock his knees. Tessa's voice shook during her vows, and he rubbed his thumb over her hand. At the reception, I stood for photographs when called. Tessa included me in one with her and Eric. Eric put his arm around my waist, and the photographer said, "Closer, Mom." I moved closer. The photograph would never show the distance. Dinner was good. The roasted potatoes were beige. Diane gave a toast after the maid of honor. She spoke about Tessa's courage and Eric's patience. Then she turned toward him. "I never had a son," she said. "But from the first time Tessa brought Eric home, he treated me like I mattered." Today, walking into that ceremony with him, I felt like I had the son I always wished for. Guests made the soft sound people make when they are being instructed to feel something. Eric looked down. Tessa reached across the table and took Diane's hand. Nobody was being intentionally cruel. That almost made it worse. I stayed through dinner. I watched the first dance. I spoke to Uncle Warren, who confirmed he had never owned a boat. I hugged Tessa and told her the ceremony had been beautiful. When I hugged Eric, he held on longer than I expected. "You okay?" he asked. It was the first time all day he had asked. "I'm tired." "Don't leave yet." "Why?" He opened his mouth, but someone called his name from the dance floor. I kissed his cheek. "Go." He hesitated, then went. I collected my purse, thanked Diane's sister for dinner, and walked out without gathering one candle, tray, garment bag, favor box, or abandoned jacket. My phone rang before I reached home. I knew it was Eric. For the first time in his life, I let my son wonder where I was while I kept driving. The call stopped before I reached the next light. A voicemail appeared. I waited until I was parked in my driveway to play it. "Mom, where'd you go? We're doing the sparkler thing in 10 minutes. Tessa wants one picture with everybody outside. Call me." Behind him, music thumped and people shouted. His voice sounded annoyed, not worried. The sparkler thing. I pictured myself standing in a line of guests holding a wire that spat fire, while Eric and Tessa ran beneath our raised arms. I had paid $17 for a box of extra-long sparklers after Tessa learned the original ones burned for only 90 seconds. I went inside and locked the door. My house still smelled faintly of the cinnamon coffee Eric had brought days earlier. On the kitchen table, the ceramic bird glared at nothing. "You're going to have to lower your expectations," I told it. The bird did not. I unzipped the plum dress and hung it on the back of my bedroom door. One of the small white roses from my front row seat had caught in the hem. I pulled it free and set it on the dresser. By morning, the edges had browned. The wedding group message began producing photographs at 7. Tessa beneath the arch, Eric feeding her cake, Diane and Eric entering together. The sparkler exit looked beautiful. Everyone's arms made a bright tunnel, and Eric and Tessa were laughing as they ran through it. I enlarged the photograph. There was an empty place near the end of the line beside Paula. Nobody else would notice. I noticed. At 9, Tessa sent a message directly to me. "Thank you for being there yesterday. It meant so much to us. Love you." It was kind. It was also the kind of sentence you could send to a former coworker who attended your retirement party. I replied, "The wedding was beautiful. I hope you have a wonderful trip." I added a heart, removed it, then added it again. Eric and Tessa left that afternoon for 6 days in California. I knew because I had their flight information taped beside my phone. Eric had given it to me just in case, without defining the case. I took the paper down, folded it, and put it in a drawer. For the first 2 days of their honeymoon, I cleaned. Not regular cleaning, the kind that turns grief into labeled shelves. I moved the candle box marks from the floor beneath the piano. I gathered abandoned pens and matched the ones that still had caps. I found 3 leftover invitation envelopes in the dining room and put them with my stationery, although I could not imagine wanting to mail anything that elegant ever again. In the refrigerator, 6 bottles of sparkling cider remained. I called Paula. "Do you want cider? What kind?" "Sparkling. Is this a trap?" "I have 6 bottles. Why?" "Wedding. Then yes, but only if we drink it disrespectfully." She came over with Janet, the silver-haired woman from the art fair photograph. Janet was taller than I expected and wore red eyeglasses on a beaded chain. She carried 2 pizza boxes and greeted the ceramic bird by name. "You named it?" I asked. "Cornelius." "It doesn't look like a Cornelius. That's because you don't know him yet." Paula took 3 wine glasses from my cabinet. "We're drinking cider out of these," she said. "It improves the rebellion." They told me about the art fair without apologizing for having enjoyed it. Janet had bought a glass bowl shaped like a collapsed hat. Paula had argued with a painter who charged extra for the frame she did not want. They had eaten lunch at a cafe where the waiter called every woman young lady, including someone who appeared to be 90. I laughed more than I intended. Then Janet asked how the wedding went. Paula froze with a pizza slice halfway to her mouth. "It was beautiful," I said. Janet looked from me to Paula. And weddings are long." Paula lowered the pizza. Eric escorted the bride's mother and had Marlene seated before the processional. "Paula." "What?" "You were going to make her think we spent 40 minutes discussing table linens." Janet considered this while chewing. "Did you throw anything?" she asked. "No. Then you handled it better than I would have." "That is not a high bar," Paula said. Janet threw a shoe at her second husband. It was his shoe. Still. He had left it in the hallway for 9 days. I liked Janet immediately, which made me feel disloyal in a way I could not explain. Enjoying new company seemed too close to admitting I had room for it. We finished 2 bottles of cider. When Paula and Janet left, my house felt quieter than it had before they arrived. I stood in the kitchen holding 3 sticky glasses and wanted to call Eric. It would have been afternoon in California. He might have answered from a beach or a rental car. I could have asked about the weather and listened to him avoid the wedding. I put my phone face down and washed the glasses. On the 6th day, he texted a picture of Tessa standing beside the ocean in a wide-brimmed hat. "Look who finally relaxed." I replied that she looked happy. He sent, "See you Sunday?" No time. No plan. Just the assumption of Sunday. I looked at the message for several minutes. Paula had invited me to dinner at a small Thai restaurant with Janet. I had said yes before Eric texted. In the past, I would have canceled. Paula would have pretended not to mind, and I would have told myself sisters were more flexible than sons. I wrote, "I have dinner plans Sunday. Let's choose another day." The 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. "Plans?" I wrote. "Yes." "With who?" I almost answered. Then I wondered why I felt required to present evidence. "I'll call you tomorrow," I wrote. He sent a thumbs up. Sunday afternoon, I was upstairs changing earrings when I heard my front door open. "Mom?" "Eric." I checked the clock. 5:20. Paula was picking me up at 5:30. "Up here," I called. He appeared at my bedroom door carrying a bright blue gift bag. Tessa stood behind him with a tan and an uncertain smile. "Surprise," he said. "You have to stop using that key." His smile slipped. "Hello to you too." Tessa stepped past him and hugged me. She smelled like coconut lotion and the perfume she had worn at the wedding. "We brought you something," she said. "I'm glad you had a good trip." "We did. It was perfect." Well, the first hotel room had a view of a parking structure, but Eric got them to move us. Eric looked pleased with himself. Initiative. I laughed before I could stop myself. For a moment, everything felt normal. Tessa handed me the bag. Inside was a soft scarf printed with blue and gold flowers. "We saw it and thought of you," she said. "It's beautiful." "You like scarves," Eric added. "I do." He looked at my dress, then toward the bed where I had laid my purse. "Are you going somewhere?" "Dinner." "Oh. I told you I had plans." "Yeah, but I thought you meant lunch or something. Why?" He shrugged. Tessa sat on the edge of my bed. "We thought we'd have Sunday dinner." My old response rose automatically. There was leftover chicken. I could make rice. I could call Paula and say I was tired. I touched the scarf in the bag. You should have asked. Eric leaned against the doorframe. We always have Sunday dinner after I get back from a trip. You have been on 2 trips in 5 years, and we did it both times. It still would have been polite to ask. Tessa looked down at her hands. You don't have to make anything, she said. We could order. I'm meeting Paula. For dinner? Yes. And Janet, I added, although I did not know why. Eric frowned. Who's Janet? A friend of Paula's. You're canceling dinner with us for somebody you barely know. I'm not canceling. We did not have plans. His mouth tightened. The front doorbell rang. That'll be Paula. Nobody moved. I carried the scarf downstairs with Eric and Tessa following. Paula was alone on the porch. Janet's meeting us there, she said, then saw them. Oh, hello. Eric gave her a look. Hi, Aunt Paula. Tessa attempted a smile. We surprised Marlene. I can see that. We thought we'd have dinner, Eric said. Paula glanced at me. I knew that look. She was giving me an exit. If I said I wanted to stay, she would leave without an argument. I hated that making the right choice required disappointing someone I loved. I had spent years arranging my life to avoid that feeling, and all I had accomplished was teaching people which disappointment would be cheapest. I'll get my coat, I said. Eric stared at me. Tessa picked up her purse from the entry table. We should go. You don't have to leave this minute, I said. No, it's fine. Her voice had become bright and thin. We need to unpack. Eric did not move. Tessa touched his arm. Eric. He looked at me. How long is this going to last? Paula turned toward the porch, pretending to inspect the neighborhood. What? I asked. This. He gestured between us. You making sure we know you have somewhere better to be. I made plans. You never make plans on Sunday. That does not mean Sunday belongs to you. I didn't say it did. You used your key, walked into my house, and expected dinner after I told you I was unavailable. We wanted to see you, and I'm glad you did. You don't act glad. There was enough truth in that to stop me. Tessa looked from him to me. We should have called, she said. I told him we should. Eric turned to her. You said she'd probably be home. I said probably. That isn't the same as definitely. He laughed under his breath. Great. The argument had shifted so quickly that I could see the shape of their marriage forming around it. Eric did not want to be the only person who had assumed. Tessa did not want to be blamed for his assumption. Both of them wanted me to make it smaller. I put on my coat. Let's choose a night later this week. Eric shook his head. No, Mom. Go have dinner. I intend to. He flinched as though I had slapped away an offering. Tessa hugged me again, but this one used only one arm. At the door, Eric set his key on the entry table. I looked at it. I didn't ask you to return that. You made it pretty clear I'm not welcome to use it. I asked you to knock. What's the difference? The difference is whether I get to open the door. He left the key where it was. At the restaurant, Janet had already ordered an appetizer called Crying Tiger Beef. Is that going to make me cry? I asked. Only if you're the tiger, she said. Paula did not mention Eric until we were halfway through dinner. You okay? No. Do you want to go home? I pictured the blue gift bag on my bed, Tessa's careful smile, Eric's key on the table. No, I said. I stayed, laughed at something Janet said, and ordered dessert even though I was full. When I got home, the key was still exactly where Eric had left it. For the first time, there was a door between my son and me that neither of us could pretend was unlocked. I left the key on the entry table for 3 days. Every time I passed it, I considered calling Eric. I could tell him I had not rejected him. I could explain that knocking was not exile. I could package the whole thing in gentle language and deliver it directly to the part of him that had been injured by a boundary. On the 4th day, I put the key in the same kitchen drawer as his flight information. He did not call. Neither did Tessa. The dinner we were supposed to schedule never made it onto anyone's calendar. Sunday came again. and at 4 in the afternoon I caught myself checking the driveway. At 5, I heated soup. At 6, I put most of it away. At 7, Paula sent me a photograph of Cornelius wearing a tiny paper hat. She had made a matching one for the ceramic bird at her house, which looked much friendlier and therefore untrustworthy. I called her. "Are you busy? I'm putting hats on pottery. My schedule is packed. Do you want to come over?" "Now?" "If you want." There was a pause. "Marlene, did Eric cancel on you?" "No." "Did you expect him?" "No." "Did you cook enough soup for 6? 4 at most." She sighed. "What?" "I already have plans." "That's fine. You said it like I'm failing a test." "I didn't. I'm having dinner with Janet and some people from the Art Council. That sounds nice. You could come. I don't want to be added because I called at 7. And I don't want to be your emergency contact for loneliness." The sentence went through me cleanly. I didn't mean, "I know what you meant. You're hurting, and I love you. But I spent years asking you to show up when your son might need you, and now you're asking me to drop things because he doesn't. That isn't fair. It's extremely fair. That's why it feels terrible." I sat at the kitchen table. Cornelius stared at me in his paper hat. Paula's voice softened. "Come to dinner. I'm not withdrawing the invitation. Just don't pretend it's the same as choosing me before you're alone. I think I'll stay home." "Okay." She did not rush to change my mind. After we hung up, I ate soup by myself. I did not enjoy it. I did not become wiser with every spoonful. I was simply lonely, and for once I let loneliness exist without turning it into an emergency someone else had to fix. The following week, Paula invited me to a lecture at the library about local architecture. I said yes on Tuesday rather than waiting to see if Eric called by Saturday. The lecture was awful. The speaker had 74 slides and a voice that made every building sound recently deceased. Janet fell asleep during a section on courthouse columns and woke herself by saying, "Exactly," loud enough to make 3 people turn around. Afterward, we went for coffee. "This counts," Paula said. "As what?" "You showing up when there's no crisis. I have always shown up." She gave me a look. "I have frequently shown up. Better." Janet stirred too much sugar into her coffee. "My sister and I didn't speak for 11 years, she said. Neither Paula nor I had asked, but Janet rarely required an invitation. "What happened?" I said. "She married a man who sold motivational DVDs and referred to himself as an entrepreneur." "For 11 years?" Paula asked. "No, for 9 months. We needed the other 10 years to admit we were both dramatic." I smiled. "Are you telling me not to waste 11 years? I'm telling you estrangement is boring. People act like it's all slam doors. Mostly it's birthdays where you think about calling and then reorganize a drawer." I thought of Eric's key. "I'm not estranged from my son." "Good," Janet said. "Then you have fewer drawers to organize." Eric finally called while I was standing in the pharmacy comparing 2 brands of hand lotion. His name on the screen made my entire body respond before my mind did. Relief first, then caution, then anger at needing caution. "Hi," I said. "Hey." He sounded tired. A woman beside me tested a bottle of lotion and sniffed her hand. "How are you?" I asked. "Fine, busy." "How's Tessa?" "Fine." There were many versions of fine. His was number 12. Everything is wrong. But I haven't decided who to blame. "Do you want to come for dinner Thursday?" I asked. "I can't Thursday." "All right. Tessa's mom is coming over." He said it flatly. "Then another night." "Yeah. Maybe." The woman sniffed another lotion and made a dissatisfied noise. "Eric, did you call for a reason?" "I was calling to see how you were. I'm comparing hand lotion. That good, huh? Thrilling." He laughed once. I held on to that sound longer than I should have. "I'll call you this weekend," he said. He didn't. He appeared at my door the following Wednesday at 9:30 at night. He knocked. I had changed into pajamas and was watching a cooking show where everyone behaved as if a fallen soufflé were a moral failure. When I opened the door, Eric stood on the porch in the same work clothes he had worn that morning. His tie was gone. His hair looked as if he had been gripping it. "You okay?" I asked. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He entered without hugging me and went directly to the kitchen. Old habits led him to the refrigerator. He opened it and stared inside. "Do you have anything to eat? There's yogurt." He looked over the door. "Dinner food?" I ate dinner. "So no. So there's yogurt." He shut the refrigerator. "That's new." "What?" "You always have something. I have many things. You don't want yogurt." He sat at the table beneath Cornelius. "What's with the hat? It improves his temperament. He looks ridiculous. You look tired." He rubbed his face. "Tessa and I had a fight. I filled the kettle." "About what?" "Diane." I stopped with my hand on the faucet. He laughed without humor. "You can say it. Say what?" "You told me so." "I didn't. You didn't have to." I turned on the water. "What happened?" "Diane's been at our place every night this week." "Why?" "Wedding gifts, thank you cards, photos." "I don't know. There's always a reason." I set 2 mugs on the counter. "Did you ask Tessa for a night alone?" "Yes." "And?" "She said her mom is having a hard time going back to an empty apartment after the wedding." "That sounds possible. It's been 3 weeks. Grief does not have an efficient schedule." "It's not grief. What is it?" He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "It's like she's part of the marriage." The kettle began to hiss. I poured the water. "How does Tessa see it?" "She thinks I'm being selfish." "Are you?" He stared at me. "Seriously? I wasn't there. Her mother has rearranged our kitchen." "That's brave." "She moved the coffee maker. Then this is worse than I understood." He almost smiled. I carried the mugs to the table. He drank too soon and burned his mouth. "Tessa says I'm cold to Diane," he said. "Are you? I'm tired of managing her feelings." I waited. His eyes narrowed. "What?" "Nothing." "No, say it. You asked me to do the same thing." "With who?" "With you. With Tessa. At the wedding." "That was one day. It was a pattern before it was a day." He pushed his mug away. "I came here because I thought you would understand." "I do understand. It doesn't sound like it. You want your home to feel like your home. You want to make plans with your wife without someone else's disappointment controlling the answer." "Exactly. And you need to tell your wife that." "I did. She turned it into a fight. Then keep talking." He stood and returned to the refrigerator. This time he took out the yogurt. "You used to be on my side. I am on your side." "No, you're neutral now. You're like a therapist who serves bad tea." "I'm not neutral. I'm refusing to help you make Tessa the villain so you don't have to look at your own choices." He peeled back the yogurt lid. "My choice was trying to be kind to a woman whose husband left her. Your choice was making promises to different women and hoping the most forgiving one would absorb the collision." He looked at me over the spoon. "You really have been saving that." "I haven't." "Sure. I don't want to be the place you come to complain about your wife. You're my mother. I'm also her mother-in-law. She removed you from the wedding." "You agreed." His spoon hit the table. "Why do you keep defending her?" "I'm not defending her. I'm holding you responsible for you." He stood so abruptly his chair scraped the floor. "Do you know what's funny? Tessa thinks I run here whenever things get hard. I told her that was ridiculous because we barely talk anymore. Then we have one fight and here I am. Did you tell her you were coming?" "No." "Does she know where you are?" "She can probably guess." "Call her." He stared at me. "Now?" "Yes. I came here to cool off. You came here to avoid her. Those aren't the same thing. Sometimes they are." His phone buzzed on the table. "Tessa." He watched it ring. I said, "Answer." "You don't get to tell me how to handle my marriage." "No. But I get to decide whether my kitchen is where you hide from it." The phone stopped. He picked it up and shoved it into his pocket. "I should go. You can stay if you call her." He shook his head. "You always wanted me here before." "Not like this." "What changed?" I looked at him. He knew. He carried the half-eaten yogurt to the sink, then stopped and put it in the refrigerator instead. Even angry, he knew I hated wasting food. At the doorway, he glanced at the entry table. "The key's gone. It's in a drawer, so you still have it." "Yes." He stood with one hand on the doorknob. "I don't know what you want from me, Mom. The truth would be a start." "I told you the truth." "No. You told me Tessa is making your life difficult. The truth is you helped build the life you're complaining about." His face went hard, then tired. He left without saying goodnight. At 10:15, my phone lit up. Not Eric. Tessa. "Are you awake?" I replied yes. Her next message took several minutes. "Can I come see you tomorrow?" Without Eric. I looked toward the drawer where I had put his key. Then I wrote, "Come at 6. Please knock." I spent the next day telling myself I was not nervous. Then I cleaned the bathroom no guest would use, changed the kitchen towels twice, and bought the herbal tea Tessa liked. At 5:30, I caught myself slicing apples because she once said hunger made serious conversations feel hostile. I put them back in the refrigerator. She was coming to talk, not be managed. At 6 exactly, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Tessa stood on the porch holding the emergency bag. "I knocked," she said. I noticed. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She looked tired. Not wedding tired, which had been bright and frantic. This was the duller exhaustion of sleeping beside a problem and waking to find it still breathing. She placed the bag on the entry table where Eric's key had been. "I didn't know whose things were whose," she said. "There's a sewing kit, some pain reliever, and one granola bar. Eric ate the other one." "I know." He dropped crumbs down his suit before the ceremony. I saw the photographic evidence. Her mouth twitched. For a few seconds, we were almost ourselves. Then she touched the bag's handles. "I thought you might want it back." "Thank you." I carried it to the kitchen. Tessa followed and sat in Eric's usual chair beneath Cornelius. "What is that?" she asked. "A bird. I understand the category. His name is Cornelius." "Of course it is." I put the kettle on. "You don't have to make tea," she said. "I already bought it." She looked at the box on the counter. "You bought tea for this?" "I needed tea." "You drink coffee." "Sit there and let me lie politely." That startled a laugh out of her. It vanished almost immediately. I poured 2 cups and sat across from her. For a while, she watched steam rise from hers. "Eric told me you made him call me. I told him he could not hide here instead. He said you took my side. I didn't take a side. That's what he says when he doesn't want to choose. I told him he was responsible for his own decisions." She rubbed the edge of the tea bag tag between her fingers. "We had a terrible fight. I assumed. He came home and acted like answering his phone proved something. Then he said you agreed that my mother is too involved in our marriage. I did not say that. I know. Eventually." "How eventually?" "After 2 hours." I took a sip of tea. "He wanted you to blame me," she said. "He wanted somewhere to put what he was feeling." That's a graceful way to say it. I'm trying not to talk about my son as though he isn't in the room. He isn't in the room. That has never stopped people. She looked at me over her cup. "Are you still angry with me?" "Yes." The answer surprised her. I could see it. She had expected either a softer word or a speech. "Okay," she said. "You asked." "I know. Are you angry with me?" "Yes." "Okay, we sat with that." The refrigerator motor clicked on. Cornelius watched us fail to behave beautifully. Tessa put down her cup. "The wedding morning was awful," I heard. "Did Paula tell you?" She heard from someone. Everyone kept asking where things were. Diane ordered too much food, then cried because the hotel charged us for coffee. Raina couldn't find the stain remover. It was in the bag. She looked in the bag. It has a side pocket. Tessa closed her eyes. "I knew it had a side pocket. I labeled it." "I know, Marlene." I waited. She pressed her palms together. "I kept thinking you would show up. I did show up." "Not like that." "No, you knew we were counting on you, and you counted on that more than you counted on me." Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. Do you know how humiliating it was to have everyone realize you'd pulled out? I did not pull out of the wedding. You pulled out of everything except sitting in a chair. That was the role you gave me. There were other ways you could have handled it." She looked toward the window. "I told myself you were trying to punish us. I know. It was easier." "Yes." Her thumb moved over the smooth gold band on her finger. "I didn't come here to fight about breakfast. Why did you come?" "Because Eric keeps saying this was my decision. It was." She looked at me sharply. "Not only mine." "No." He said, "Yes, I know." "You asked him when?" "Sunday night." And he said yes. The kitchen seemed to contract around those words. Tessa leaned forward. "I had a whole argument prepared. I was going to say my mother had nobody and you had him all the time. I was going to say a marriage meant building a new family and he couldn't always be afraid of disappointing you. Was he? No. Then why did you think he was? Because he was comfortable with you." I almost laughed. "Those are not the same thing. I know that now." "Do you?" She flinched. "I would ask what he wanted for dinner and he'd say, 'Your pot roast.' I would suggest we go somewhere on Sunday, and he'd say he should check whether you were cooking. You knew his schedule. You knew when he was worried before I did. He called me when he was worried. He told me he was fine. That was his decision. I didn't understand that then. I thought there was this place in him I couldn't get into because you were already there." I looked at her left hand turning the ring. "So you took my place in the processional. I gave it to my mother, using Eric." "Yes." It was quiet and plain. I had expected the admission to satisfy something. It didn't. Pain does not always shrink when someone names the tool. Tessa looked down. "I thought he would say no." "What?" "I thought he would say he'd already promised you." The words went through me slowly. "What would you have done?" "I don't know. Fought with him probably. Then agreed to both of you walking or asked Marcus to escort Mom. But he didn't resist." "No." "How quickly did he agree?" She swallowed. "Immediately." I stared at her. She began to cry then, silently and angrily, wiping each tear as if it had broken a rule. "For 1 minute. It felt good," she said. "He chose me. He chose my mother because I asked him to." I thought, this is what being first feels like. I said nothing. Then he said we shouldn't tell you yet because you'd be upset. He knew. "Yes." "And you agreed to wait." "Yes." "Why?" "Because if we told you, you might change his mind." Her honesty was crueler than an excuse would have been. She looked at me. "I'm sorry." I folded my hands in my lap because they wanted to move, to reach across the table and comfort her. "You were afraid I could take back a choice you did not trust him to keep," I said. "Yes. And the wedding proved he kept it. That's the problem." I frowned. She wiped her face again. When he agreed that fast, I felt chosen. Afterward, I kept thinking about it. If he could drop a promise to you because I was upset, what would he drop if somebody else was upset with him? What would he tell me later because he knew I'd understand? There it was. The inheritance Eric had created from one sentence. "You should tell him that." I did. What did he say? That I set a trap? Did you? Yes. She looked exhausted by the answer. "I didn't know it was a trap when I said it. I thought it was proof. Those are often the same thing." "I know." I carried our cups to the counter, although neither was empty. Tessa spoke behind me. "You liked being the one he needed." I stopped. "That doesn't excuse what we did," she said quickly, "but it's true." I turned around. She looked frightened, but she did not take it back. "You made it easy for him not to learn things," she continued. "You remembered, cooked, fixed, waited. You say he used you, but you liked being useful to him." I wanted to tell her she had no right. Instead, I remembered Paula asking how many servings of soup I had made. "Yes," I said. "I did." Tessa blinked. Being needed felt safer than wondering whether he would choose to be with me if he didn't need anything. That's why Sunday dinner mattered, Yes. Then when you left with Paula, it hurt him. It hurt both of us. I know. She stood and came to the counter, leaving a careful distance between us. I'm not asking you to pretend we didn't hurt you. What are you asking? She twisted her ring. I need to know if you can forgive me. There was desperation in the word need, not a gift offered to me, a door she wanted me to open so she could stop standing in the hallway with herself. I don't know yet. Her face fell. I apologized. I heard you. What else am I supposed to do? Live differently. That could take years. Yes. She turned away, pressing both hands to her forehead. So we're just broken now. No, it feels like you want us to earn our way back. I want you to understand there is no back. She faced me. I loved you, Tessa. I still do. But I will not return to being useful enough that none of you have to consider me. I never thought of you that way. You sent my emergency bag back before you asked how I was. Her eyes went to the entryway. I didn't realize. I know. That hurt her. I was sorry it did, but I did not erase it. At the door, she hugged me. Unlike the one before my dinner with Paula, this hug used both arms. I held her, but I did not tell her everything was fine. She pulled away first. Please don't tell Eric what I said. I won't carry messages between you. That isn't what I asked. It's the same problem in a different dress. She gave a tired laugh. All right. After she left, I unpacked the emergency bag. The sewing kit was unopened. 2 bandages were missing. The pain reliever bottle was almost empty. In the side pocket, beneath the stain remover Raina had never found, was the last granola bar. I put everything away. My phone rang. Diane. I let it go to voicemail. Then Eric called. I let that go too. A message from Tessa appeared. I told Mom she needs to call before coming over. She thinks you put me up to it. Another message arrived from Eric. What did Tessa say to you? Then Diane's voicemail transcribed itself across my screen. Marlene, I don't appreciate being made into the problem here. 3 adults, each trying to hand me the same argument from a different side. I placed the phone in the drawer beside Eric's key and closed it. The granola bar stayed in my hand. I ate it standing alone in my kitchen, letting all of them survive one evening without me deciding whose hunger mattered most. Diane called again at 8:15 the next morning. I answered because ignoring her twice would turn restraint into theater. Marlene, she said, I think we should meet. Good morning. Good morning. Can we meet? For what? To clear the air. I looked out my kitchen window. The air appeared clear enough. Coffee, she added. Neutral territory. Are we negotiating a ceasefire? I don't know what we're doing. That's why I'm suggesting coffee. We met at a diner where the menus were sticky and the waitress called both of us sweetheart. Diane arrived 10 minutes early and chose a booth facing the door. Her hair was perfectly arranged. Her hands were not. She kept folding and unfolding the paper wrapper from her straw. I'm sorry about the voicemail, she said. You sounded upset. I was upset. I noticed. The waitress poured coffee. Diane waited until she left. Tessa says I can only come over on Thursdays. Only Thursdays? She said we should plan 1 dinner a week and give them the rest of the week to themselves. That isn't the same as only being allowed on Thursdays. It feels like visitation. They're newlyweds. I'm her mother. I stirred cream into my coffee. That statement has been getting a lot of work lately. She gave me a sharp look, then glanced down. I suppose I deserved that. I didn't say you did. You didn't have to. We were quiet while the waitress dropped off 2 plates of toast neither of us had ordered. Diane buttered hers all the way to the crust, something I respected. Did you tell Tessa to set limits with me? She asked. No. She came here. Yes. She told you things about our family. She told me things about herself. Which is very different, I'm sure. It is. Diane put down the knife. I have spent the past year watching people leave. My husband, friends who didn't want to choose sides, relatives who decided his version of our marriage was easier to invite to dinner. I thought at least my daughter, your daughter, has not left. She's pulling away. She's married. So is Eric, but you still expect a relationship with him. I do not expect to be in his kitchen every night. You used to see him every Sunday, and I mistook a routine for a guarantee. We're all learning." She studied me. "You sound very calm for someone who blew up a wedding breakfast. I canceled eggs. The marriage survived." Diane's mouth twitched, but she refused the smile. "I felt terrible walking with Eric. Did you?" "Eventually." I waited. She sighed. "When Tessa first suggested it, I was touched. Eric is attentive. He looks at you when you speak. He puts his hand under your elbow on stairs. Sometimes. My husband stopped doing things like that years before he left. I didn't realize I missed them until someone offered. Eric isn't your husband, I know that. But the gesture meant more than not entering alone." She looked toward the counter where the waitress was arguing with the cook about toast. It meant I hadn't become embarrassing. I did not answer. Diane rubbed her thumb across a water ring on the table. "After the divorce, people watched me. Not openly. They looked at my clothes, who I sat with, whether I laughed too loudly. I thought if Eric walked me in, people would see I still belonged to something, and I would be seated before they could see me alone." Her eyes lifted to mine. Yes, the honesty cost her. I could tell. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said. "I just made sure not to ask whether it would. That's what they did too. I'm sorry." I believed her. It did not make the aisle disappear. We ate our unrequested toast. After a while, Diane said, "I'm not trying to take your son. I know. I don't want you taking my daughter. I don't have that kind of power. You might." "No." Tessa made a decision about her home. If you turn that into something I did, you won't have to listen to her. Diane looked annoyed, which was preferable to wounded. "You and your manageable pieces," she said. "I never promised they'd be pleasant." Before we left, she insisted on paying. I let her, mostly because she had ordered a side of bacon I had not eaten. 3 weeks later, Tessa called about Eric's birthday. "Are you doing dinner?" she asked. "Has Eric asked me to?" "He assumed. He's had a difficult month with assumptions." I told him that. "Did he enjoy it?" "Not particularly." I smiled. "What does he want?" I asked. "Your pot roast." The answer warmed and irritated me in equal measure. "And what do you want?" To get through his birthday without anyone discussing our marriage, the wedding, my mother, your sister, keys, coffee makers, or emotional boundaries. That narrows the conversation. We can discuss sports. You hate sports. I'm willing to learn. I called Eric directly. "Do you want dinner at my house for your birthday?" He hesitated. "Do you want to have it?" "Yes." "Then yes." "Who would you like there?" "You." "Tessa." A pause. "And Diane, I guess. Do you want Diane there?" "If we don't invite her, it'll be a thing. That wasn't my question." He groaned softly. "No, I don't want Diane there. Then don't invite her. Tessa will think I'm excluding her because of the wedding. Have you asked Tessa?" "No." "Try that." He called back 20 minutes later. "Tessa wants her mom there. Do you? I want one dinner where nobody feels rejected. You may need a different family." He laughed. We settled on the 5 of us: Eric, Tessa, Diane, Paula, and me. Eric asked if Janet was coming. "Why would Janet come to your birthday?" "I don't know. She's apparently part of the new Sunday lineup. She has bridge on Thursdays." I was joking. "You're bad at it." "I get that from Dad." The dinner came with rules. I would make the pot roast. Tessa would bring potatoes. Diane would bring dessert. Paula volunteered salad after I told her pouring dressing from a bottle counted. "You've changed," she said. "I'm delegating. You used to call that being lazy." I was wrong. That sounded painful. It was. On the evening of the dinner, Eric arrived first. He knocked. When I opened the door, he held a bottle of wine in one hand and a grocery store bouquet in the other. "These are for you," he said. "It's your birthday." I know. Apparently initiative includes flowers. I took them. He did not mention the key. In the kitchen, he lifted the pot roast lid and breathed in. "This smells like home. It smells like onions." "Same thing." Tessa arrived with roasted potatoes in a casserole dish, wrapped in 2 towels. Diane followed carrying a bakery pie she described as homemade by someone. Paula brought salad in a wooden bowl and handed it to Eric. "Happy birthday. Lettuce." "Thank you, Aunt Paula. I've always wanted vitamins." For the first half hour, we performed normal beautifully. We discussed a traffic detour, Diane's new hairdresser, and a documentary Paula had watched about people who lived in an underground town. Eric opened his gifts. Tessa gave him a leather weekender bag. Diane gave him a blue sweater. Paula gave him a ceramic bird with an even angrier eyebrow. "This one is Cornelius's cousin," she said. "What's his name?" Eric asked. "Kevin." He laughed until he had to put the bird down. The sound loosened everyone. Then Diane asked whether they had decided which wedding photographs to frame. Tessa's fork stopped. "Mom!" "What? That's not a forbidden topic. We agreed not to talk about the wedding. I thought we agreed not to argue about it." Eric reached for the wine. Diane continued. "There's a lovely one of Eric walking me in." Nobody spoke. Paula became fascinated by her lettuce. "It's a good photograph," Diane said, quieter. "I'm sure it is," I replied. Tessa set down her fork. "Mom, please, I'm not attacking anyone. Am I supposed to pretend it didn't happen?" "No," Eric said. "Just don't frame it for my birthday." Diane stared at him. That was unkind. It was a joke. It did not sound like one. Tessa touched her mother's wrist. "Can we have one night without making every sentence about whether you matter?" Diane pulled her hand away. "I see. I'm the problem again. No one said that. You didn't have to." I nearly laughed at the familiar line, but nothing about her face was funny. She stood. "I should go." Eric closed his eyes. Tessa said, "Mom, sit down." "I know when I'm unwanted." I felt everyone turn toward me without looking. This was the moment I would once have filled. I would have reassured Diane, softened Tessa's words, nudged Eric toward an apology, and made Paula stop staring at the ceiling. I took another bite of pot roast. Diane waited. When no rescue came, she looked directly at me. "Do you have nothing to say? It isn't my conversation. I'm in your house." "Yes, you invited me." "Because Tessa wanted you here." Tessa flinched. I set down my fork. "That wasn't meant to wound you. It was the answer. You can stay and let your daughter explain what she meant, or you can leave. I won't decide for either of you." Diane sat, not gracefully. The chair legs struck the floor. Tessa took a breath. "I love you," she said. "I also need you to stop treating every limit as abandonment." Diane's eyes filled. "You don't understand what it's like to lose your place in a family." "I do," I said. Everyone looked at me. Diane held my gaze. The room became very quiet. Then she nodded once. It was not surrender. It was recognition. She stayed for pie. Afterward, Paula drove Diane home because Tessa and Eric had arrived in one car. Tessa stood at my sink rinsing plates while Eric wrapped leftover pot roast. "You don't have to wash those," I told her. "I know." This time, the words sounded different. At the door, she hugged me with both arms. "Thank you for dinner." "You're welcome." Eric lingered in the kitchen after she went outside. "It almost felt normal," he said. "It was good." That isn't what I said. "No." He taped the foil around the leftovers. "I miss you, Mom. I miss you too." His face softened with relief, as if that admission might return everything to its old position. Then he glanced toward the drawer where I had put his key. "So what happens now? We keep trying." "For how long?" "I don't know." He gave a tired laugh. "You really won't make this easy. I made things easy for you a long time. It did not make you kind." He looked down at the foil package in his hands. "That's harsh. It's true." He walked to the drawer and rested his fingers on the handle. I thought he might open it. Instead, he pulled his hand back. "I'll call before Sunday," he said. "Good." At the door, I offered him the flowers he had brought because he had forgotten they were for me. He smiled. "Keep them." Then he went outside to his wife, carrying the meal I had made. without mistaking it for proof that nothing needed to change. The flowers opened slowly on my kitchen table. Eric called before Sunday, as promised. He did not ask what I was cooking. "Can we come by around 10?" he said. "We'll bring bagels." I looked at the clock to make sure I had heard correctly. "Who are you, and what have you done with my son? I can hang up." 10 is fine. They arrived at 10:07 and knocked. Tessa carried coffee. Eric carried a paper bag darkened with grease at the bottom. "I got your cinnamon thing," he said. "Cinnamon raisin bagel? That's the one. You've eaten at my house your entire life. I remember the important parts." We sat at the kitchen table and discussed nothing heavier than whether Cornelius's paper hat was attracting dust. Eric rinsed the cups afterward. Tessa replaced the paper towel roll without being asked. When they left, I stood in the quiet kitchen waiting for the old ache. It came, but later. That became our new rhythm. Not every Sunday. Not always at my house. Sometimes Eric called and asked if I wanted coffee. Sometimes I said I already had plans. Once he said, "Okay, another time," without going silent in a way that required me to repair him. I almost congratulated him. Then I decided basic respect should not receive a parade. Tessa came alone once more, but not to confess anything. She brought back a glass casserole dish I had forgotten was missing. "Your name was taped underneath," she said. "You mean labeling things works?" Apparently, Raina could have found the stain remover if she had read. We both smiled. She stayed for tea. We spoke about her job, a difficult client, and a restaurant she wanted to try. She did not mention Eric's complaints, and I did not ask. When she left, she hugged me with both arms. Forgiveness did not arrive as a grand decision. It came in small spaces where nobody demanded it. Then Tessa asked about Thanksgiving. She called on a Tuesday while I was untangling a string of lights I had stored in a knot despite swearing the previous year that I would not. "We want a host," she said. The lights tightened in my hands. "At your apartment?" "We have a dining table." "You have a round table for 4. We have a folding table, too." "The one that tilts?" Eric fixed it. "With what?" "Something from the hardware store." That answer does not increase my confidence. She laughed. "We really want to try. Our first Thanksgiving married." "Of course." The words came out thinner than I intended. Tessa heard it. "You usually host for 31 years. We're not trying to take it from you." I sat on the floor beside the tangled lights. I had heard that sentence before. Maybe she heard it too because she added quickly, "We're asking. If it matters to you to have it at your house, say that." It did matter. My dining room had held every Thanksgiving since Eric was old enough to steal olives from the relish tray. Frank used to carve the turkey badly while denying it. After he died, Eric took over and proved the skill was hereditary. I knew which burner ran hot, which serving spoon Diane would prefer, and how long Paula could be trusted with gravy before she wandered away. Hosting was work. It was also the shape of my place in the family. "I need to think," I said. "Okay, who would come?" "You, us, Diane, Paula, and Janet if she wants." "Janet has her own family. She said they're in Vermont. You asked Janet before you asked me?" A pause. She was standing next to Paula when I mentioned it. The hurt was unreasonable and immediate. Tessa did not defend herself. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have called you first." I closed my eyes. "No. You should not have to organize your life in the order of who might be most offended. That sounds like a trap." "It isn't. I'm trying to mean it. Are you succeeding?" "Not yet." She laughed gently. "Think about it," she said. I called Paula. "Tessa wants Thanksgiving at their apartment. Does their oven work? That's your concern?" "I've seen their stove. It looks decorative." She asked Janet. Janet invited herself. "There's a difference." "You knew?" "I was there." "And you didn't tell me?" "Tessa said she was calling you." I pulled at the lights. 3 bulbs disappeared deeper into the knot. "I always host Thanksgiving." "I know. They'll ruin the turkey." "Probably." "The table tilts. I heard there was a repair. I'm being replaced by a folding table in hardware." Paula was silent. I waited for her to agree. Instead, she said, "You don't get to ask them to become adults and then object when they host a meal badly." I did not ask them to become adults. They're already adults. That was the original problem. I like hosting. Then say you'd like to keep doing it. Don't turn potatoes into a loyalty test. I dropped the lights. I have to go. Marlene. What? You are allowed to be sad even if nobody did anything wrong. That was more difficult than anger. Anger came with instructions. Sadness simply asked to be carried. I called Tessa back and accepted. What should I bring? I asked. Rolls. Rolls. And maybe your cranberry sauce. Anything else? No. I looked at the dining room table that had seated 12 with the addition of 2 card tables. Rolls and cranberry sauce, I repeated. If you want to bring something more, no. You're hosting. Thanksgiving morning, I woke at 5 out of habit and had nothing to put in the oven. I made the cranberry sauce. I burned the first batch because I was watching the parade and feeling sorry for myself. The second batch turned out perfectly, which annoyed me. At noon, I carried 2 baskets of rolls and a glass bowl of cranberry sauce to Eric and Tessa's apartment. I knocked. Eric opened the door wearing an apron that said, "Kiss the cook," and an expression suggesting the cook might bite. "Good," he said. "You're here. What's wrong?" "Nothing." Smoke drifted behind him. "What's burning?" Also nothing. I stepped inside. The apartment was hot enough to grow orchids. The folding table had been pushed against the regular table and covered with 2 different white cloths. One end sat visibly lower. Kevin, the ceramic bird, occupied the center beside 3 orange candles. "Kevin looks festive," I said. "He's hiding the table seam." Tessa emerged from the kitchen holding a roasting pan. "Do not ask about the turkey." I wasn't going to. "Good. Is it cooked?" She stared at me. "I'm going to put down the rolls." Diane arrived 10 minutes later with 3 shopping bags. "I brought appetizers," she announced. Tessa looked at the clock. "Dinner is in an hour. People will be hungry. There are 5 people, 6 with Janet, 7 with Paula." Exactly. Diane unpacked cheese, crackers, olives, nuts, a shrimp ring, and 2 kinds of dip. Eric looked at the counter space disappearing beneath containers. "Where are we supposed to carve the turkey?" I assumed the table. "The table is set. You could move the plates. We could also leave things where the hosts put them," Tessa said. Diane stopped with a container of hummus in her hand. I was helping. "I know. You always say that right before telling me to stop." Tessa breathed through her nose. I opened my mouth. Then I ate an olive. Diane looked at me. I ate another. Paula and Janet arrived carrying salad, wine, and no visible sense of tension. "Something smells wonderful," Janet said. "The rolls," Eric replied. I kicked his ankle. The turkey was cooked, though one side was darker than the other. The potatoes had too much garlic. The gravy developed a skin while we waited for Eric to find the carving knife, which had been moved to make room for Diane's shrimp ring. It was also a good meal. The folding table held. Halfway through dinner, Diane stood to refill everyone's water. "Mom, sit," Tessa said. "We can pass the pitcher." "I don't mind." "I know, but sit." Diane sat. A few minutes later, she reached across Eric to move the cranberry sauce closer to Tessa. Eric picked up the bowl first. "She can ask," he said. Diane withdrew her hand. I know. We've all been only helping." His tone was sharper than it needed to be. Tessa looked at him. Diane looked down at her plate. I said, "The sauce is heavy. Passing it was reasonable." Eric turned toward me, surprised. "What?" "Boundaries don't require making someone ashamed for reaching across a table." I wasn't trying to shame her. "You sounded angry." "I am angry." "Then be accurate about what you're angry about." Diane's eyes moved between us. Eric leaned back, jaw tight. For a moment, I thought he would accuse me of defending her again. Instead, he set the bowl down. "Sorry," he said to Diane. "That came out wrong." Diane nodded stiffly. Tessa reached for the cranberry sauce herself. The conversation resumed, awkwardly at first. Janet told a story about a neighbor who had tried to thaw a turkey in a hot tub. Paula insisted it was an urban legend. Janet insisted she had seen photographs and that the hot tub had never recovered. By dessert, everyone was laughing. Afterward, Tessa asked me to help her figure out why the whipped cream would not thicken. That was different from assuming I would fix it. I joined her in the kitchen. "You bought cooking cream," I said. "It says cream. It also says 18%. What percentage is whipped cream? Enough to frighten a cardiologist." She leaned against the counter and laughed. "We tried. You hosted Thanksgiving. The turkey almost caught fire. It did not catch fire. It smoked. So did your father-in-law every Thanksgiving until 1998. She smiled. In the living room, I heard Eric tell Diane that they were going to clean up alone after everyone left. "I can help," Diane said. "We know. We want to do it." No anger, no apology for the request. Diane said, "All right." When we were leaving, Eric carried my empty bowl and baskets to the car. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "I know." He placed them on the back seat. "Was it terrible?" "Parts of it." He laughed. "Did you hate not hosting?" I looked toward their apartment window. Tessa's silhouette moved behind the curtain. Diane stood near her, but there was space between them. "Yes," I said. Eric's smile disappeared. "You could have told us," Tessa asked. "I chose." "That doesn't mean you didn't lose something." The sentence sounded new in his mouth. "No," I said. "It doesn't." He put his hands in his coat pockets. "I missed your house too. Even with the turkey?" "Especially with the turkey." He bent and kissed my cheek. At home, my dining room was exactly as I had left it. No glasses on the table, no serving dishes soaking, no Frank standing at the sink insisting he had carved correctly. I set the empty cranberry bowl on the counter and cried. Not because Eric and Tessa had excluded me, because they hadn't. They had invited me, asked what I wanted, and built something of their own. I could no longer use injury to explain why their growing life left less room for mine. My phone rang while I was still wiping my face. "Eric." "Did you forget something?" I asked. "No." Behind him, I heard running water and Tessa laughing. "I just wanted to make sure you got home." "I did." "Okay." He hesitated. "Mom?" "Yes?" "Thank you for coming without taking over." I laughed through the last of my tears. That may be the worst thank you I've ever received. I meant it nicely. I know. And thank you for telling me I was being a jerk to Diane. I didn't use that word. You had the face. I only have one face. You have 17. After we hung up, I stood in my quiet kitchen a little longer. The loss was still real. So was the call. The call did not fill the empty chairs in my dining room, but it made the room feel less abandoned. I left the table bare for a week. Then I covered it with the red cloth Frank had always said looked like a hotel banquet and set Cornelius in the center wearing a tiny wreath. Paula objected to the wreath. "It softens him," she said. "It's Christmas. He has a reputation." She replaced it with a paper crown while I was not looking. By the middle of December, Eric and Tessa had visited twice. Once they brought dinner. The second time, Eric came alone to help me carry boxes from the basement, which I had not requested and did not refuse. He did not ask me to tell Tessa he was a good husband. He did not complain about Diane. He carried the boxes, replaced 2 burned-out bulbs on the porch, and ate 1 bowl of soup. When he finished, he washed the bowl. "You know," I said, "if you keep doing dishes, I'll have to find a new complaint. I'm sure you'll manage." He kissed my cheek before leaving. It would have been easy to call that healing. I had become suspicious of easy names. Christmas plans took 3 phone calls, 2 group messages, and 1 conversation in which Diane suggested we eat at a restaurant so nobody's home would be politically significant. Paula replied that she did not know Ham had political affiliations. In the end, Diane would host brunch at 11. Eric and Tessa would come to my house for dinner at 4. Paula and Janet would join us. Diane declined my invitation, saying 2 family gatherings in one day felt performative. I understood. We had spent months performing family while learning very little about being one. On Christmas morning, Paula arrived at 9 with a bottle of wine. "You're early," I said. "I'm not staying. This is a hostage exchange." She handed me the bottle and took the pecan pie I had baked for her apartment. "Janet and I will be back at 3:30. "You don't have to come that early." "Yes, I do. Somebody has to prevent you from checking the oven every 4 minutes. I know how to cook a ham. You also know how to worry one dry." After she left, I put on music and cooked at an ordinary pace. The ham went in at noon, potatoes at 1:30. I set the table for 5. I added a 6th plate, stared at it, then removed it. Diane had said no. At 2:15, Eric called. "Merry Christmas," he said. "Merry Christmas." Behind him, I heard voices and dishes. "We may be a little late." "How little?" "Maybe an hour." "Dinner is at 4. "I know." Diane had a rough morning. I closed the oven. What happened? She found some ornaments she and Roger bought on their honeymoon. Roger. Her former husband's name had rarely been spoken in months. Everyone treated it like a glass somebody might knock over. "Is she all right?" "She's upset," I gathered. "Tessa doesn't want to leave her alone right now." "Is Tessa there?" "Yeah. May I speak to her?" A pause. "Why?" "Because you just told me what she wants." He lowered his voice. "Mom, don't make this a thing." I looked at the table. "What time are you leaving Diane's?" "I don't know. Then you will probably miss dinner." "We'll be there. We're eating at 4. You can keep things warm. I can. I'm not going to." He was silent. "Paula and Janet made plans too," I said. "We will eat at 4. If you arrive later, there will be food." "Okay, fine." His tone said nothing was fine. At 3:30, Paula and Janet arrived carrying salad, sparkling cider, and Kevin the ceramic bird. "No," I said when I saw him. "He and Cornelius are family," Janet replied. "They're going to fight. Then Christmas will feel authentic." She placed Kevin beside Cornelius on the table. Their paper crowns tilted toward each other like hostile royalty. At 4, Eric and Tessa were not there. I checked the ham. Paula opened the wine. Janet asked if she should move her car in case they needed the driveway. Nobody answered. At 4:10, I put the potatoes in a serving bowl. At 4:15, we eat, I said. Paula looked at me. "Don't." I didn't say anything. "Your face has 17 voices, too." At 4:14, headlights moved across the front window. I stood too quickly. The car continued down the street. At 4:15, I sat. "Pass the rolls," I said. We ate. The ham was good. The potatoes were slightly dry because I had timed them for people who were not there. Janet told us Kevin appeared to have developed feelings for Cornelius. Paula said Cornelius could do better. Nobody mentioned the 2 unused chairs until dessert. Then Paula said, "You're doing the thing." "What thing?" "The mother thing where you tell jokes instead of admitting you're hurt." "I have not told a joke. You're allowing a courtship between ceramic birds." That was Janet. "I support their love," Janet said. I set down my fork. "I'm hurt." Paula nodded. "That's all?" "That's all. She did not tell me to call Eric." At 6:30, the doorbell rang. Tessa stood on the porch holding a gift bag. Eric stood behind her with a casserole dish covered in foil. Her face was tight with anger. His was guarded. "We brought sweet potatoes," he said. "Come in." The table had been cleared except for the birds and half a pecan pie. Paula was washing glasses. Janet sat on the floor trying to repair a loose ribbon on a package. Tessa saw the empty plates stacked near the sink. "You ate." "Yes." Eric looked at the clock. "I told you we'd be late. You said an hour. Things got complicated. Dinner was at 4. I know what time dinner was." Tessa set the gift bag on a chair. "We should go," she said. "You just arrived," I replied. I told him we should leave Mom's at 2:30. Eric turned toward her. "Not now. When?" "Not in front of everyone. Everyone already knows we're 2.5 hours late." Paula dried her hands. "We can leave," she said. "No," Eric replied. "We're leaving." "This is my house," I said. "I'll decide who leaves." Nobody moved. I carried the sweet potatoes to the kitchen. "If you're hungry, I can make plates." Tessa followed me. "I'm not hungry." You haven't eaten since brunch? I lost my appetite around hour 4. Eric came in behind her. Diane was crying. I know, I said. She didn't want us to leave. Tessa folded her arms. I wanted to leave. You couldn't walk out on her on Christmas. She was not in danger. She was sad. That's easy for you to say. She's my mother. Then why were you acting like I was the cruel one? I wasn't. You told me Marlene would understand. The kitchen went still. Eric looked at me. I did not rescue him from the sentence. Tessa gave a bitter laugh. There it is. Your favorite plan. Disappoint the person least likely to punish you. That's not what happened. What happened? I asked. He looked trapped, which made him angry. Diane needed us, and you decided I didn't. I knew you had Paula and Janet. You did not know that when we made the plan. This is ridiculous. We are talking about being late for dinner. No, Tessa said. We are talking about why you agreed to stay. I stayed for your mother. I did not ask you to. She would have blamed you if we left. And now you want us to blame Marlene because she ate without us. I don't blame her. You walked in carrying sweet potatoes like evidence. Eric set the casserole dish on the counter harder than necessary. Fine. I should have dragged you out while your mother was crying. Happy? No, I said. He turned to me. What do you want me to say? I want you to stop presenting every choice as something a woman made you do. His face reddened. Of course. This is my fault, too. Not Diane's sadness, not Tessa's anger. Your decision. Everything is a lesson now. No, dinner was dinner. We ate it. You knew we'd come. I knew you said you would, and you couldn't wait. I waited at the wedding. I waited after the wedding. I spent years keeping Sundays open because you might want me. I am done calling waiting proof of love. The words came out louder than I intended. From the dining room, there was no sound. Eric's eyes shone. I have been trying. I know. Do you? Because every mistake becomes the aisle again. This became the aisle because you used the same reason. He looked away. You understand. You're stronger. You have someone else. You'll forgive me. Whatever version lets you hurt me without feeling like you chose it. He rubbed his forehead with both hands. Tessa stood beside him, no longer angry, just tired. I told Mom we were leaving, she said quietly. She cried harder. Eric said we should give her another half hour. Then another, I said. Tessa nodded. Eric looked at her. You agreed. I stopped fighting you. That is agreement. No, I said. It isn't. He stared at me. For an instant, I saw the realization touch him. Then pride shut the door. I'm not doing this on Christmas. He walked out. Tessa remained. You should go with him, I said. He has the keys. Despite everything, I laughed. She did too, one broken sound. From the dining room, Paula called, I can drive you. Tessa picked up the gift bag. This is for you. You didn't have to bring anything. I know. She followed Eric outside. Paula and Janet left soon afterward. Paula packed 2 containers of food for me, even though the food was already mine. You okay? She asked at the door. No, call me tomorrow. I will. After everyone was gone, I opened the gift bag. Inside was a framed wedding photograph. Not the processional. Not the posed picture where the photographer had told me to move closer. It was a candid shot from the reception. Eric was laughing at something outside the frame. Tessa had one hand on his shoulder. I stood beside them looking at my son. My expression was not angry. It was tired and full of love. A small card from Tessa said, this one felt true. I set the photograph on the table between Cornelius and Kevin. The next morning, Tessa sent an apology for being late. Eric sent nothing. He did not call that week or the next. I did not call him. The silence was worse because we had been doing better. I caught myself defending him to people who were not criticizing him. Paula asked if I wanted company on New Year's Eve. I said yes 3 days before, not 3 hours after loneliness arrived. At midnight, Janet kissed Cornelius on the head and claimed it was tradition. A week into January, I came home from the grocery store and saw Eric's car parked across from my house. He was sitting behind the wheel. I carried my bags to the porch. He got out but did not approach until I had unlocked the door. "I can help," he said. "I have 2 bags." "Right." I stepped inside and set them down. He remained on the porch. "You can come in." He looked at the door, then at me. "I didn't come for food." "All right. I didn't come because Tessa and I had a fight." "All right." His hands were empty. No flowers, no coffee, no object to turn the visit into a favor or exchange. "I've been sitting out there for 20 minutes trying to figure out how to say this without making you help me say it." I waited. He took a breath. "I came to tell you why I left you sitting down." I looked at him across the threshold. "That sounds like something you should say inside." He stepped in and waited while I closed the door. He removed his coat, hung it on the hook, and followed me to the kitchen without opening the refrigerator. The framed wedding photograph sat on the table between Cornelius and Kevin. Eric stopped when he saw it. "Tessa gave you that." "Christmas." "She almost didn't." "Why?" "She thought you might hate every picture from that day." "I don't hate the day." He pulled out a chair but did not sit. "Can we talk?" "That depends. Are you going to leave if I say something you don't like?" His face tightened. "No." "Then sit." I made coffee because my hands needed a task. He did not tell me I didn't have to. He watched me fill the machine, measure the grounds, and press the button. When I sat across from him, he looked at the photograph again. "I remember when that was taken," he said. Marcus had just told me the cake looked like drywall. It did. Tasted better. The bar was low. He smiled, but the smile faded. "I've been trying to find a version of this where I didn't know what I was doing." I waited. There isn't one. The coffee machine clicked behind us. Tessa asked me Sunday night, "After dinner at your house?" "I know. She said Diane couldn't handle walking in alone." I said Marcus could escort her. Tessa said that wasn't the same. She wanted me, and you agreed, right away. His fingers closed around each other. I told myself it was because Diane needed me. That made me feel generous, like I was stepping up for Tessa's family. "Were you?" "Partly." I appreciated the answer. A complete lie would have been easy to reject. A complete confession would have made him sound more self-aware than he had been. Partly was probably true. "What was the other part?" I asked. "Tessa was upset. She often was then. I knew how to stop it, by saying yes." He nodded. "When you were upset, I knew you would still love me." The sentence landed quietly. I looked down at my hands. He continued before I could help him. "I chose the person whose anger frightened me over the person whose love felt guaranteed." The coffee machine stopped dripping. Neither of us moved. "That is what I did at the wedding," he said. "And Christmas." Diane cried, Tessa argued, and I thought about you waiting at home. I knew you'd be hurt. I also knew you wouldn't scream or threaten to stop speaking to me, so I stayed where the reaction was harder. You called that kindness. I know. Repeatedly. I know. I stood and poured the coffee. He took his mug but left it untouched. "Why didn't you tell me Sunday night?" I asked. "Because then I would have had to see your face. You saw it Wednesday. After it was too late to change anything without making a mess, so that was intentional." "Yes." He said it without decoration. I thought if I waited, you'd be angry, but you'd go along with it. The wedding was close. Guests were coming. You wouldn't want to embarrass me. He swallowed. "I used your love for me as part of the plan." I had known that. Hearing him know, it was different. The next day, I said, "You sat at my table and told me we would walk together." I lied. "Why?" I panicked. "That explains the speed, not the choice." "I know. You ate my sandwich." His eyes filled unexpectedly. "I know." Of all the things I could have said, that was the one that broke something open in him. He looked away and pressed his knuckles against his mouth. I did not cross the table. After a moment, he said, "You asked me directly, and I lied while you fed me." "Yes, I'm sorry." I had imagined his apology many times. In some versions, I forgave him before he finished. In others, I delivered a speech so precise he finally felt every moment exactly as I had. The real apology sat between us with cooling coffee and 2 ceramic birds. "I believe you," I said. He looked back at me. "That's not the same as saying it's okay." "I know." "Or that we go back." "I know." "Do you?" He breathed out. "I'm trying to." Trying cannot mean waiting for me to make it comfortable. I don't expect you to. "You do, not because you're cruel, because I taught you I would." He frowned. "That sounds like you're blaming yourself. I'm responsible for my part. I made being useful the price of staying close to me. I remembered everything, fixed everything, kept Sundays open, and called it love even when I was afraid to find out whether you wanted me if you didn't need me. I wanted you. I know that now. I didn't know it then. I should have told you. You should have behaved like it." He nodded. I wrapped both hands around my mug. "I will not be the place you come to avoid your wife. I understand I will not hold Sundays in case you're hungry. Okay, if you tell me no, I will believe you. If I tell you no, you will have to believe me without turning it into rejection." "Okay. And if someone is going to be disappointed, you do not get to decide I should be the one because I'm easier." His mouth tightened. "I can't promise I'll never mess up. I'm not asking for perfection. It feels like every mistake proves I haven't changed. Then stop asking me to grade you." He looked startled. I continued. "You came on Thanksgiving. You called after. You knocked. Those things mattered. Christmas mattered too. Change is not one clean direction. What do you want me to do when I get it wrong? Own it before someone else drags you to the answer." He stared into his coffee. "Tessa said almost the same thing. She's very smart. You were angry with her. I still know she's smart." He smiled slightly. "How are you two?" I asked. "Working on it." "That is not an answer. It's the only one I'm giving you." That surprised me enough to laugh. He looked relieved, then cautious about looking relieved. "Good," I said. "That was good." "What was?" "Not turning me into your marriage counselor? I'm learning." The silence that followed felt less dangerous. He looked at the drawer where his key waited. "I didn't come to ask for that." "I know. I also didn't come to ask you to forgive me." "Why not?" "Because Tessa asked you, and you said she wanted forgiveness so she could feel better." "She told you?" "Eventually." I raised an eyebrow. "She said it was her confession, so she was allowed." "That sounds like Tessa." Eric leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I want you to forgive me." "Of course I do. But I don't want to use your forgiveness to skip what happens next." "What happens next?" "I don't know. Neither do I." His eyes moved over my face. "Is there any honest way to know you now?" The question hurt more gently than the others. "What do you mean?" "I know what you cook. I know what hand lotion you buy because I saw it by the sink. I know you hate wet sleeves and that you keep batteries in the drawer beside the stove. But I don't know what you do on Saturdays unless it involves me needing something. That is partly because I didn't do much. What do you want to do?" "I don't know yet. Could I find out with you?" There was no polished answer. "I think so," I said. He nodded once. "Do you forgive me?" I looked at the photograph. Tessa's hand on his shoulder. My face turned toward him. All 3 of us caught in a moment none of us had understood the same way. I think forgiveness began when I stopped needing you to be the villain. His eyes filled again. "But I will not pretend it didn't change me," I added. "Or us. I don't want you to. That may be the first lie you've told today." He laughed and wiped his face. "Fine, I want you to. I also know you shouldn't." That, I believe. When he stood to leave, he carried both mugs to the sink. At the door, he put on his coat and waited. I opened my arms. He stepped into them so quickly he nearly knocked me backward. For a few seconds, he was simply my son. Not the groom in the aisle, not the man at Christmas, not the person I needed him to become. Just Eric, holding me hard enough to admit he had almost mistaken permanence for something he could not damage. When he released me, he looked embarrassed. "I'll call," he said. "Before Sunday?" "Before Sunday." He did. Not perfectly. The first time he asked if I wanted coffee, he arrived 20 minutes late and forgot to text. When I told him I had left, he apologized without explaining that traffic existed. We met another day. Once he called after an argument with Tessa and began, "You would not believe what she—" Then he stopped. "What?" I asked. "Nothing. I should tell her. You should. I hate this system." "I know." He called back 2 days later to ask whether I wanted to see a movie. He did not tell me how the argument ended, and I did not investigate. Tessa and I rebuilt more slowly. She still over-explained decisions when she thought I might be hurt. I still heard exclusion in choices that were not about me. We learned to ask uglier, more useful questions. "Are you inviting me because you want me there?" I asked once. "Yes," she said. "Are you saying yes because you want to come?" "No." "Good." She sounded offended for 3 full seconds, then laughed. Diane kept Thursday dinners but resented the calendar for another month. She sometimes called Tessa on Wednesday with an emergency that turned out to be a lamp she wanted moved. Tessa began telling her the lamp could wait. At a Sunday dinner in my house, Diane asked whether anyone had noticed how rarely she complained anymore. Everyone became interested in the food. "I'm growing," she announced. "You're narrating your growth," Paula said. "That still counts." It did, a little. Paula stopped treating every plan I made with her as evidence in a case against Eric. I stopped calling her only after checking whether he was free. She, Janet, and I took a weekend trip to a lakeside town where the hotel mattresses felt stuffed with roofing material, and Janet bought a glass fish larger than her suitcase. Eric called while we were away. "My car's at the shop," he said. "Could you possibly pick me up? I'm 2 hours away." "Oh, right. I forgot this was your trip." I mentioned it twice. "I'll get a ride." No sulking, no emergency coffee, no suggestion that Paula's plans were more flexible than his inconvenience. The next morning, he texted a picture from a bus stop with the caption, "Initiative." I showed Paula. "He looks cold," she said. "He owns a coat." In early spring, I gave him the house key back. He held it in his palm. "Are you sure? It's for emergencies." "What qualifies?" "Fire, flood, a phone call from me asking you to enter." "What about pie?" "Pie is never an emergency. Your priorities have changed. Keys are not permission." "I know." He placed it on his key ring. My birthday came on a Saturday. Eric called 3 weeks ahead. "I want to cook dinner at your house," he said. "You cook?" "I have watched cooking. That is how people end up on the news." "Tessa will supervise." "Then Tessa is cooking." "No, I am cooking. She is bringing cake. What are you making?" "It's a surprise. I've had enough surprises from you. Chicken, potatoes, green beans. Glossy, extremely wet." I laughed. 6 o'clock, he asked. 6. At 5:58 on my birthday, the doorbell rang. I was upstairs fastening an earring. I took my time walking down, not because I wanted him to wait, but because I trusted him to. Through the glass, I saw Eric on the porch, holding 2 grocery bags. Tessa stood behind him with a bakery box. Paula and Janet were coming up the walk. Diane was arguing with someone on her phone near the curb. I opened the door. Eric looked at his watch. 2 minutes early. I'm proud. I used the key to get into the grocery store. That isn't how grocery stores work. I'm learning boundaries. He shifted both bags to one hand and offered me his arm. The gesture was playful at first. Then his expression changed. Neither of us mentioned the aisle. We did not need to. "You ready?" he asked. "For your cooking?" "No, you said you forgave me." I said it began. He smiled. Behind him, Tessa balanced the cake box and said, "If you two are going to have a moment, somebody should take this." Eric reached for it without withdrawing his arm. I looked at the key ring in his hand. My house key was there. He had waited for me to open the door. I slipped my hand through his arm. He did not pull me forward or decide where I should stand. He matched his step to mine. Together, we walked into the kitchen.